Welcome back. So what's going on with this, and why is it getting no publicity at all? I mean, right after Donald Trump met, the NATO leaders and Zelensky, and then broke from that meeting to take a private phone call with Putin. Right after that phone call with Putin, Trump ordered 3 U.S. Aegis guided missile destroyers to arrive off the coast of Venezuela, where they are probably now. Is supposed to be 36 hours. Now he says they're going to Venezuela to go after Latin American drug cartels, right? But this followed this really weird conversation. Trump was in the Oval Office with Zelensky, and he said, and I quote, "So you say during the war you can't have elections. So let me just say 3.5 years from now, so you mean if we happen to be in a war with somebody, no more elections? This is good. I wonder what the fake news will say." Zelensky, you like this idea? No. Again, the media virtually did not mention this conversation between Trump and Zelensky. Oh, if you're in a war, you don't have to have elections? But then Trump sends warships to Venezuela? When's the last time you checked on your home title? That's the legal proof you own your house. The problem is, in today's AI and cyber world, scammers are stealing home titles, and your equity is their target. Criminals forge your signature on one document, and boom, your home title has been transferred out of your name. Then they take out loans using your equity or even sell your property, and you won't even know it's happened until you get a collection or foreclosure notice. That's why you need to stop what you're doing and find out today if you're already a victim. Use the promo code THOM14, THOM14 at HomeTitleLock.com to make sure that your title is still in your name. You'll also get a free title history report plus a 14-day free trial of their $1 million triple lock protection. That's 24/7 monitoring of your title, urgent alerts to any changes, and if fraud should happen, they'll spend up to $1 million to fix it. Go to HomeTitleLock.com now. Use the promo code THOM14. That's HomeTitleLock.com, promo code THOM14. Now, this is wild. I mean, is this a preparation for 2026? Is it a preparation for 2028? And now you got Eric Prince apparently in here with his new Vectis Global. He has a special hatred apparently for Maduro, the Venezuelan dictator, Nicolas Maduro. And in 2019, this is according to Jim Stewartson, in 2019, Prince pitched a plan to topple Maduro with 5,000 contractors costing about $40 million, selling it as a quick intervention that wouldn't involve U.S. troops. We didn't go for it. Last year, he writes, Jim writes, Prince launched a massive psychological warfare campaign in Venezuela called Y Casi Venezuela to oust Maduro. He's good friends with Pete Hegseth. They swam the Hudson River together for a charity event. Pete Hegseth, of course, is our defense secretary now. And Russia has armed Maduro, as has China. So where does this go? And now we're hearing that Trump wants to attack Mexican cartels. In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free, and you can sign up at ThomHartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the HartmannReport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at ThomHartmann.com. So check them all out at ThomHartmann.com and HartmannReport.com.
We say fight back!
Our book today is Can We All Be Feminists? It's a collection of essays edited by Jane Eric Udori. This first chapter, or first essay, is from Charlotte Shane. It's called No Wave Feminism. If you feel like feminism is failing you, you're not alone. I sometimes have the impression that I'm as thoroughly feminist as I am thoroughly human. That feminism is as intrinsic to my constitution as my skeleton is to my body. But in my 35 years, I've struggled with or out. Our book today is Can We All Be Feminists? It's a collection of essays edited by Jane Eric Udori. This first chapter, or first essay, is from Charlotte Shane. It's called No Wave Feminism. If you feel like feminism is failing you, you're not alone. I sometimes have the impression that I'm as thoroughly feminist as I am thoroughly human. That feminism is as intrinsic to my constitution as my skeleton is to my body. But in my 35 years, I've struggled with or outright rejected feminism on several occasions. First, as an ignorant adolescent, what do women need feminism for if they already got the vote? Then, as a sex worker who saw how regularly and even gleefully feminists stoked the public's long-standing antipathy toward professionally sexual women. And now again, as someone moving even further into the far left, who cannot abide the forms of feminism that embrace and are complicit with the worst aspects of liberalism. The more I learn about the intersecting oppressive forces that continue to shape the Western world, colonialism, patriarchy, capitalism, xenophobia, and racism, and the network of cruel social machinery to which these systems give rise, incarceration, crippling debt, disenfranchisement, deportation, and so on, the less sense it makes to use gender as the primary lens through which to regard human-engineered suffering. Feminism doesn't feel like the sharpest weapon to wield against white supremacy or border policing, for instance, or even the best tool with which to approach basic civic concerns like vibrant schools. That's not because those issues don't impact women. Obviously, they directly and indirectly impact many. But they don't necessarily impact women more or in dramatically different ways than they do men. In other words, the most significant challenges these issues present aren't tethered to one's sex. And so prioritizing gender above other aspects of identity limits one's realm of ethical responses. Here's an example. American prisons often keep female prisoners shackled while they give birth. There are variations on the theme. Some women are shackled during labor, some are unshackled, but then shackled again almost immediately afterward. And almost all are shackled while heavily pregnant. There's some variation of what shackling entails, too. It can mean being cuffed at the wrists or at the ankles, or both, or cuffed to a hospital bed or chained at the waist. Articulating these details makes the sadism even starker. A class-action federal lawsuit in 2017 alleged more than 40 women at the Milwaukee County Jail suffered this horror. It was preceded by lawsuits in 2014 and 2016 against that same jail for similar practice. But the appalling practice is hardly confined to one city or one state. In 2015, New York prisons were found to be shackling prisoners in labor in spite of a state law that made it illegal to do so. And according to a 2016 report by the Prison Birth Project and Prisoners Legal Services of Massachusetts, jails and prisons in Massachusetts were guilty of similar violations. Most feminists probably agree that this is a feminist issue. The topic accordingly receives coverage on feminist websites and sometimes in women's magazines. But does a feminist obligation to attend to the rights of the imprisoned extend only as far as pregnancy and labor? Or is it a feminist issue when a non-pregnant woman is shackled? Or when she is caged for years and exploited for her labor, denied face-to-face visits from loved ones, held captive in a compound in the name of, quote, justice? If the answer to these questions is yes, then it is also a feminist issue. Then is it also a feminist issue when men are shackled during various health emergencies, seizures, say? In 2014, a male inmate in Colorado died after undergoing several seizures while in restraints and receiving no medical treatment. Is it a feminist issue when incarcerated men are denied the right to visit with family or exploited for their labor? Is it a feminist issue when so many men are raped while in prison? Or does feminism's responsibility begin and end with gender-based mistreatment? The feminists hired by prominent media outlets often advocate for measures that would result in higher levels of incarceration. They write op-eds in favor of further criminalization around sex work and call for longer prison sentences for men convicted of assault, which we've known for decades is not necessarily synonymous with men who committed the crime. They also disturbingly relish the theater of sentencing, like that enacted by Judge Rosemary Aquilina, who told serial sexual abuser Larry Nassar that if she could, she would allow some or many people to do to him what he did to others. So sexual violation is an atrocity unless it happens to the right person. They capitalize on women's justified fear and anger around mistreatment by men to shore up the status quo, to suggest that our current problems are not the result of fundamentally unjust institutions, but rather institutions that are only incidentally sexist. That means that those same institutions could become less so with the right adjustments, like more draconian sentencing for crimes against women or more female judges. But the prison system is racist and brutal by design, not by accident or mismanagement, just as the court system regularly fails the most vulnerable because it was built to protect the powerful. The challenge of the 21st century is not to demand equal opportunity to participate in the machinery of oppression, revolutionary thinker Angela Davis has written. Rather, it is to identify and dismantle those structures. Yet leveraging our existing legal system for criminalization remains the go-to strategy for most feminists when it comes to dealing with rejection.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Hey, top of the Thursday to you. A lot going on today. By the way, my book tour, I've got this new book out, The Last American President, and the Chicago event is sold out. So that's that. The Los Angeles event still has spaces open. It's October 18th. You can find the information over at kpfk.org. It's being sponsored by or sponsored isn't the right word, but I'm showing up for free, and they're helping out. But it's our Los Angeles affiliate, and I'll also be in San Diego, and Greg Palast is going to be joining me in Los Angeles. Not sure about San Diego. I just pinged him, but I haven't heard back. And that'll be October 17th at the Columbus Club, and for that, go to knsj.org or news.knsj.org. In fact, let me just click on that and make sure. Yeah, there it is. So news.knsj.org will get you there. So we got a lot to talk about today, reporting live from our studio bunker in war-torn Portland. I'll tell you about it in just a minute. Portland has figured out how to respond to this. But for our program today, I want to start out with the GOP's addiction to lies, the death of truth, and the rise of post-fact politics. Also, surprisingly, yesterday on Fox News, Speaker Mike Johnson, during a fluffy interview with Fox News Senior Trump-Fluffer Marita Bartiromo, Johnson admitted that shutting down the government was something that they wanted to do. And I want to dig into that at some length. I'll tell you about that in just a moment. Also, Portland has a diabolical plan to handle ICE and Trump's stormtroopers. Can ICE handle it? In the second hour of our program, Phil Ittner, our Ukrainian, well, he's an American, he's in Ukraine, the veteran war correspondent, is going to check in and let us know how Ukraine is going. Also, Trump wants to revive, or has revived, family separations. They're now tearing children away from their families like they did during his first term. He wants to punish and destroy. I mean, they're literally dragged naked, zip-tied children out of their homes in Chicago. It's hard for me to fathom the depravity of what they're doing. And also, when Medicare Advantage ads begin in the next week or three, remember this. I'll tell you about that, what United Healthcare is up to in the second hour of our program. And it's not just United Healthcare, it's right across the board. In the third hour of our program, our second guest, we have two guests on today, Phil Ittner and Ellie Krug. Ellie has a trans program, a program about trans issues on our Minneapolis affiliate, KTNF. Are we headed to a Trump transgender registry? Also, collateral damage, how Trump's cuts crippled life-saving medical research. This is a horrific story. Children are dying of AIDS now as a consequence of Trump's cuts. And this could have been the cure for AIDS, by the way. This was a clinical trial of a new drug that just got shut down by Trump. because it was happening in Africa. And also, while Trump is trashing America, the world is laughing at us. The world's leaders are laughing at us. They're making fun of Trump. This is pretty pathetic, frankly. But to start out, my op-ed today over at HartmannReport.com is titled "The GOP's Addiction to Lies, the Death of Truth, and the Rise of Post-Fact Politics." And, you know, the essence of my argument here, I start out by pointing out that back in 1964, when I was 13 years old, I went door to door for Barry Goldwater with my dad. And then 3 years later, I was, out in East Lansing getting tear gassed and beaten up for protesting against the war and protesting against ongoing segregation down in the South. As I mentioned the other day, SDS started out as an anti-segregation, anti-inequality group, basically. And I read both of Barry Goldwater's books and his two autobiographies, No Apologies, and I forget the title of the other one, Conscience of a Conservative. And while I disagree with pretty much every position that Barry Goldwater ever stood for, the one thing I believe is that he believed what he was saying, that when he spoke, he believed he was telling the truth. And he was telling people things he actually believed. That was my dad's Republican Party. And, from then, that was in the 60s, through even, Reagan and Bush through the, from the 80s up until the mid-2000s or the 2010s. Republicans didn't explicitly tell lies. They shaded the truth. They would selectively, like Reagan saying that the tax cuts will pay for themselves. I mean, tax cuts actually do increase economic activity slightly. They don't pay for themselves, though. But, when George Bush said that, there's WMDs in Iraq, well, there was some intelligence that said that. He was cherry-picking the intelligence. He wasn't specifically lying. It wasn't just a naked lie. It was, shading the truth. Their war on coal talking points, Reagan's welfare queen, their pitch for the Keystone XL pipeline, saying it's going to create 42,000 jobs when those were temporary jobs in the construction, and the actual number of jobs Keystone produced on a long-term basis was about 3 dozen. The Bush administration redefining torture, with John Hughes' memos and stuff like that. It wasn't a lie. It was shading the truth. Paul Ryan saying that Obamacare would raid Medicare. Well, it was actually, dealing with Medicare overpayments and fraud. Sarah Palin's death panels. There weren't death panels, but there was a program for retired people. So it's shading the truth. And I could go on. I mean, the Affordable Care Act, saying it was a government takeover of health care, was an exaggeration. Bush's mission accomplished banner. Republicans talking about the death tax, wiping out family farms. Yeah, it did. It wiped out 1 or 2 of them, or very few of them. But when Trump came into office, things changed. On his very first day in office, Trump told a whole bunch of lies. Literally his first day in office in 2017, on January 20th, 2017. He claimed 1.5 million people attended his inauguration, which was, a massive exaggeration. He lied that it never rained during his speech, when anybody there could see it. He accused journalists of deliberately misrepresenting the crowd size to sow discord. He said that the intelligence community's assertion that he had ties to Russia was a lie. And most disgustingly, he went to the CIA headquarters and lied about his disagreements with them and the number of times he'd appeared on magazine covers. He bragged about that, and it was a lie. So, as the Washington Post documented, over the first 4 years of the Trump presidency, he told 30,573 verifiable lies. And, he's probably going to easily beat that record with this administration. The Washington Post isn't keeping track anymore, of course. Jeff Bezos has kind of recalibrated things. But now, instead of shading the truth, the Republicans are doing something quite different. They're telling absolute naked lies, just top to bottom lies. They lied that millions of illegal immigrants voted in the 2016 election. They lied that Democrats want open borders and want to abolish ICE. They lied that Biden hired 87,000 IRS agents to harass you. I think it was Ted Cruz even called them jackbooted thugs. Maybe that was Rand Paul. Trump repeatedly lied that he had created the greatest economy ever. It was just a naked lie. The lie that the 2020 election was stolen from Trump. This is a lie. Today's lie, the Democrats are filibustering the continuing resolution to keep the government open because they want to give trillions of dollars in health care to illegal aliens. It's a complete lie. There's literally nothing in there that would do that, and the Democrats are not. No Democrats are calling for that. When Trump says he was totally exonerated by the Mueller report, it's a lie. You can just read the report. It says, yeah, he had all these connections to. In fact, there were a bunch of prosecutions and convictions that came out of that for connections to Moscow. He lied about COVID-19 and said it was under control and forced people back out into the workplace, leading to 500,000 unnecessary deaths in the United States. He's lying about, that he passed the Veterans Choice Program. This was Obama's program. I mean, it just goes on and on. They lied about the Dominion voting machines. They lied when they said China pays for your tariffs. They lied when they said Mexico will pay for the border wall. But for some unknown reason, our mainstream media is allergic to using the words lie, lies, and liar. And they overlook the fact that telling lies is a classic fascist strategy. Now, Democrats, by and large, have not been lying. I mean, occasionally you get the little shading of the truth, but basically the last time Democrats engaged in a big lie was the Vietnam War, and it burned them so badly that they've kind of kept to a relatively ethical position. And finally, and this is bizarre, if the Republicans wanted to end the filibuster, the Democratic filibuster right now, and open the government again, they don't need a single Democratic vote. They have 53 votes in the Senate. They could simply vote to change the Senate rules and allow this continuing resolution to pass. They have done this with the Supreme Court justices. It's how we got our last 3 Supreme Court justices. They have done this with other federal judges. They've done this with appointees to the executive branch, Trump's appointees, where they simply say, we're just going to suspend the filibuster. Democrats tried to do this with the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. And, all you need is 50 votes to suspend the filibuster. Now, the Democrats weren't able to do it because Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, stabbed us all in the back, both the Democratic Party and all the rest of Americans. But that's the bottom line, is that, this whole government shutdown thing could be ended tomorrow. And frankly, I don't know why Democrats aren't pointing this out. It could be ended tomorrow if John Thune simply said, here's a proposal to change the Senate rules to allow this particular continuing resolution to pass with only 50 votes. They've got 53 votes. They could do it. The Republicans want this shutdown. It's amazing.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
But here we are with the Republican Party addicted to lies and just pumping them out like a fire hose. And welcome back, Ed in Portland. Hey, Ed, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom, it's nice to talk to you again. Just went through the war zone and the insurrection this morning on my way to work. Mm-hmm. The only change is a few bicyclists. I didn't see that earlier. And then fewer sharpshooters on the roof this morning than I remember seeing earlier. Maybe they don't like being in the rain. But
probably.
That's the report.
And there's nothing to sharpshoot at. I mean, did you see that?
Yeah.
I'm going to do the whole story here in a couple of minutes, but did you see that Portland is talking about reviving or, having a special version of the naked bike ride, the World Naked Bike Ride, as a way of protesting ICE?
Oh, I did a special on X-ray about that. I put it on X-rays years ago. Uh-huh. But anyway, I had a thought. Did you see that report about at least $3.5 million, or some people were saying even more, is going to be spent sending these unneeded troops to Portland?
Yeah, Tina Kotek pointed that out. $2 million for their salaries and $1.5 million for food and lodging and transportation. So
I have an idea that should please everybody. The Republicans in the Oregon legislature were all up in arms because earlier this week they finally passed a transportation tax increase to fix all the potholes. Well, how about we redirect these millions of dollars that are being wasted on this unnecessary deployment, have the feds donate it to Portland to fix the potholes, and the Republicans have to be able to get behind it because then they don't have to put a ballot measure on to try to repeal the tax increase.
Yeah, it would be a great
win-win
idea
for everybody.
It would be a great idea. Ed, thanks for that. Thanks for the report. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
good talking to you.
See ya.
Thank you. Larry in Marysville, Washington. Hey, Larry, thanks for listening to KBCS. What's up?
Well, I just looked up the judge who just recently did the Obrego case. He just ruled on the Obrego case yesterday. Mm-hmm. Naturally, he does this on the day after the shutdown because he can get away with all this stuff. Mm-hmm. Okay, and not to mention the fact that he winds up with Rupert Murdoch the very day of the shutdown. He goes and signs with Rupert Murdoch, but that's beside the point right now. The fact
how did he rule on the Obrego Garcia case?
He denied Abrego Garcia on the case and said that it wasn't strong enough or it wasn't whatever it wasn't. But it's a judge appointed. Philip Taylor is his name. He's out of Georgia. Now here's the key point. You type in Philip Taylor, Judge, Georgia, and you wind up getting the Department of Justice, Office of Chief Immigration Judge. You tap on that, and immediately after you tap on that, you get a big sign that says, Democrats have shut down the government. Department of Justice websites are not currently regularly updated. Please refer to the Department of Justice contingency plan. Now, the point is that is a law-breaking Hatch Act.
That's correct, and the Hatch Act calls for 2 years in prison for violations.
And not just that, you tap on this contingency plan, pages show up of their contingency plan. So why are they allowed to put in the Department of
They're not
Justice?
allowed. They're breaking the law. They're just nakedly breaking the law, and because they know that they're never going to prosecute themselves. They don't care. Larry, this is the most lawless administration we've ever had. Larry, thanks for the call. Change starts with you. You can be calling your Democratic or Republican representatives to let them know what you think by calling 202-224-3121. It's the Capitol switchboard. It'll get you right through to them. So between his tax cuts and crashing the debt ceiling and shifting billions of Treasury dollars into crypto and tariffs and all this other stuff, Trump is threatening to crash our economy. And he doesn't seem to be particularly worried about that. Why would that be? Well, first off, economic disasters are great excuses to cut taxes. Both Reagan and George W. Bush used recessions as their excuse to stimulate the economy by cutting trillions from the taxes of billionaires. Secondly, economic crises increase the tolerance for strongman governments. Hitler rode to power in Europe based on the Great Depression. And third, billionaires make a fortune when there's a market crash because they can buy all the stock that average people are trying to unload from their 401ks to pay the damn rent. There's a whole article about this that lays the whole thing out over at HartmannReport.com. It's titled Crashing the Economy, Trump's Blueprint for Power and Profit. Check it out. I'm hearing nothing on that.
I remember when the truth still meant a person's word held weight. Goldwater stood on principles even when the stakes were great. But now the truth's been buried under shadows cold and sly. A party lost its compass to the needle of the lie. The GOP's addiction to the lie, selling poison to the people while the truth just walks on by. What once was conviction has withered and died. All that's left is the fire hose. The GOP's addiction to the lie. Reagan spun his stories, Bush twisted WMDs, but Trump lit the match and turned lies into disease. From stolen votes to walls that Mexico won't buy, they feed it to the faithful, keep the truth out of sight. The GOP's addiction to the lie.
Welcome back. This is amazing. Mike Johnson just comes right out and says Democrats are withholding their votes to obtain free health care for illegal aliens. That's a lie. And then he says, this is this morning, or this was last night with Maria Bartiromo. He says, yes, the president and I talking about shutting down and permanently cutting federal employees. And he says, yes, the president and I talked about this at great length. While the shutdown is very damaging for real American people who depend on government services, it can provide an opportunity to downsize the scope and scale of government, which is something we've always wanted to do. Keep in mind, the Republicans could end this government shutdown today. All they'd have to do is have John Thune in the Senate, the Senate Majority Leader, the guy who has replaced Mitch McConnell, is have John Thune in the Senate put forward a resolution that suspends the Senate rules or alters the Senate rules to allow this continuing resolution to pass. It has been done. Republicans have done this dozens of times for federal judges, for Trump appointees. They can do it for anything they want. And then Trump comes along and says, we can do things during the shutdown that are irreversible and bad for them, like cutting vast numbers of people out. I mean, he's talking about cutting people off their health care. And for some reason, Trump thinks that's only going to be bad for Democrats. He says, I can't believe the radical left Democrats gave me this unprecedented opportunity to determine which of the Democrat agencies, most of which are a political scam, Russell Vogt recommends to be cut, and whether or not these cuts will be temporary or permanent. And, he's canceling infrastructure money to blue states. I mean, this is just wild what's going on. Carol Levin says, we would not be having these discussions here at the White House about mass layoffs if not for the Democrats voting to shut the government down. This is an unfortunate consequence. Again, the Republicans could keep the government open right now, today. It would take 5 minutes. It would take, or whatever the time, is involved in getting a vote. Why isn't anybody talking about that? Am I missing something here?
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
How Portland is responding to the jackbooted thugs, to paraphrase Rand Paul. We'll be back with that and your calls on the other side of the break. Stay with us. Today in the Thom Hartmann Book Club is The Black Panthers, Portraits from an Unfinished Revolution, edited by Brian Shih and Yohuro Williams. This is from Chapter 1, In Defense of Self-Defense, Pathways to the Black Panther Party. People joined the Black Panther Party for many different reasons. The moment of politicization was different for everyone, but a few were commonly shared, including the 1963 bombing of the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama, and the 1965 Watts Urban Rebellion. A more general sense of frustration and alienation compelled others to join the Panthers' ranks. The party exerted an enormous pull on the imagination of the members, especially those who had experienced police brutality. In the rebellious spirit of the times, the party's bold stance on self-defense resonated with those seeking fresh alternatives for achieving social justice and black liberation. Party members expressed a deep appreciation for other aspects of the Panthers program, including its community service programs, which grew out of a genuine love for the people. My neighborhood friend, a sister that I've known since I was about 11 years old, said, Claudia, I want you to go with me. We're going to go and hear these Panthers speak at PS 92, which was an elementary school in our community. I said, okay, I'll go on. I'll go. I'm down. I listened to these brothers speak, and I heard the pitch. I saw the determination, and I saw the compassion. I thought, wow, this is the feeling that I used to get when I went into clubs and popped my fingers and got on the dance floor. It was the same feeling, except it was bigger for me now. It was bigger than me. It was full of love of the people. No longer did we have to argue and fight about, what are you looking at me like that for? Or don't step on my sneaker, or this is my block. Now we really had something to fight for. We had a people to fight for. This is bigger than any gang or club. We had a goal. We had something to look forward to, which was the betterment of black people. It was most definitely something that I was searching for, but I didn't yet know what that I was searching. I didn't find it. It fell on me. That was the first meeting. That's what actually started the wheels in my mind for me to become political. I was rank and file. I did a lot of things. The easiest way to say it is just to imagine worker bees. You got one queen, everyone else works. Rank and file. Those were the worker bees. We did it all. The one thing I enjoyed the most was teaching the political education classes on 7th Avenue in front of the Harlem office. That was the most fruitful. But anything I did, it was for the love of the people. Wherever I was sent, or whatever I had to do, it didn't matter anymore because it was for the love of the people. We were trying to get the word out. If I had to sell 125 papers in a day and I got close to that goal, then I did a good job. I was originally from Queens and came out of the Corona branch of the Black Panther Party. When the Panther 21 were arrested and went to jail, in order to keep those offices open and functioning, Panthers were sent all over the city to Harlem. I was one of the Panthers that ended up in the Harlem branch. That's how I got to be there on Wednesday nights to give the PE classes, the political education classes. I was extremely nervous the first time, but once I found my voice, then it went like clockwork. A lot of the people in the community who were just walking by were like, well, let me stop and see what this little girl is talking about, because I was indeed a little girl at that time. We started off every PE class with a 10-point program, and we ended every PE class with, okay, let me hear from you guys. What do you want to see different in your community, and how are you living? Then we would get the feedback, and then we would know how to concentrate our efforts. Rent strikes were crazy, because if you had to live like that, why should you pay rent? We did clothing drives, we did food drives, we did, of course, the breakfast program. There were a lot of other things that happened, and they might have been more meaningful, but those PE classes stayed with me. We were outside on the street in front of the office. When you were giving a class or you were having a talk inside the office and there were only Panthers around you, the feeling was just different than outside on the street. The Panthers knew what you were doing because they were Panthers and they were doing the same thing. Outside, there were constant questions and answers with the people. You had to give yourself up when you were outside in that crowd. You never knew who was going to say, we don't care about that, we don't care about you, you need to go away. There were a lot of people that just did not know where we were coming from and were afraid that if they were seen in the office or if they were seen asking questions, that they'd get reprisals, that they'd end up getting hurt. They were afraid. Things went so fast. Time seems to accelerate when you're always looking over your shoulder. At this time, it was all-out war against the Panthers, and brothers are being shot down in the street or set up or going to jail for years. We have brothers in jail since that time, 40, 41 years. We've had brothers that we've lost on the inside that we can't let the world forget. The government said, okay, we're going to lock them up and throw away the key and no one will ever care. But it's not true. We want them out. We want freedom for all political prisoners. We don't want any more of them to die on the inside. That's the biggest injustice. There were times when our cadre consisted of almost nothing but women, and that was when the brothers were locked up or had to go underground. I remember being on a front line against a policeman on horseback and being 6 months pregnant. What we wanted was a simple street light, and we got the community out there and we blocked traffic. I didn't know whether I was going to be trampled, my baby killed, but I knew I had to be there. I was an active member of the party from 1968 to 1971, and in those few years, I aged 10, 15 years. We didn't have much time to be little girls. We went straight to womanhood. Talking about these things is bringing up all of these feelings, though I hadn't thought about or touched on them for a long time.
Did
you know that every weekday we send out an email before the show giving you all the topics coming up so you can be fully informed and ready to interact with our program? Or that after the show we send out Sue's Stack, a list of every topic I've discussed along with clickable hot links to every source of information I've shared with you on the air? It's all completely free and available over at thom.tv, THOM.tv. Check it out.
Chains on the Capitol, storm clouds in the sky, selling out the people with another crooked lie. A bribe in the shadows, a deal in the dark. The nation's on the line while they're lighting the spark. It's a shutdown scam, pay-to-play plan, lies on repeat from a desperate man. While the rich get richer, the people get slammed. Welcome, America, to the shutdown scam.
Welcome back. 35 minutes past the hour. I'm just gonna this story that appeared on Raw Story. Well, actually, it started on Common Dreams. It's Brad Reed on Common Dreams. And I'm just going to read straight through it. This is astonishing. This is just hours after Donald Trump told soldiers that they should use America's cities as training grounds. Tuesday night, federal law enforcement officials descended upon an apartment complex in Chicago, where witnesses said they broke down residents' doors, smashed furniture and belongings, and dragged dozens of the residents, including children, into U-Haul vans. Local resident Roderick Johnson, who lives in the building raided by ICE agents, told the Chicago Sun-Times that federal agents broke down his door, put him in zip ties, and kept him detained outside the building for 3 hours before letting him go. He told the paper, "I asked agents why they're holding me if I was an American citizen, and they said I had to wait until they looked me up. I asked if they had a warrant, and I asked for a lawyer. They never brought one." Patricia Fisher, who also lives in the building, backed up Johnson's account and said that agents forcibly removed all the residents from their homes, regardless of their legal status. "They treated us like we were nothing," she told local station ABC7 Chicago. "They like piling us all in the back on the other side, and there was no room to move anywhere." Ebony Sweets Watson, who lives across the street from the raided building, told the Chicago Sun-Times that she saw children, some of whom weren't even wearing clothes, naked children, dragged out of the building by ICE agents and then placed into U-Haul vans. "It was heartbreaking to watch," she said. "Even if you're not a mother, seeing kids come out buck naked and taken away from their mothers, it was horrible." Watson also said it appeared the federal agents had ransacked the building during the raid. "Stuff was everywhere," she said. "You could see people's birth certificates, papers thrown all over the place. Water was leaking into the hallway. It was wicked crazy." Dan Jones, a resident of the building, told the Chicago Sun-Times that he returned from work on Wednesday to find that several of his belongings, including his electronics and his furniture, were missing from his apartment, and that all of his clothes had been strewn across the floor. He said he asked the Chicago Police Department for information about what happened to his belongings in the wake of the ICE raid, but so far has received no response. "I'm pissed off," Jones told the paper. "I feel defeated because the authorities aren't doing anything." Where's the mayor of Chicago? Where is the governor of Illinois? Darrell Ballard, who witnessed the raid, told ABC7 Chicago that it felt more like a military operation than law enforcement. "We're under siege," he said. "We're being invaded by our own military." American Immigration Council fellow Aaron Reichlich-Melnick said in a Thursday social media post that the raid represented, quote, "a surreal moment for America in that it was a clear violation of residents' civil liberties." Needless to say, he said, if the normal police ever pulled something like this, pulling every single person out of an apartment building and handcuffing them to run warrant checks, they would be sued into oblivion. Yet ICE is going to get away with it entirely. He said, "I am deeply skeptical that the warrant permitted them to smash down every door and arrest every person in the building. My gut says they went far beyond their warrant." This is astonishing. Just astonishing. Here in Portland, it hasn't gotten that bad here in Portland yet. We've got snipers on the roofs of buildings, and we've got residents bringing flowers to the ICE building, maybe 20, 30 people outside, singing songs, playing guitars, riding on their unicycles. And now the World Naked Bike Ride has called for an emergency naked bike ride to protest the ICE. This is how Portland responds to ICE, right? We're going to have a naked bike ride. I love this city. I got to tell you, I just love this city. All right, what's on your mind today? Skip in Morris County, New Jersey. Hey, Skip, what's up?
Hey, Tom. I tried to call on Tuesday. I wanted to talk to you about what happened to Mikey Sherrill and having her military records released.
Which is
by
a
Marco
crime.
Rubio.
Yeah, it's a crime what they did.
And, I've been calling for a while. I used to be a South Florida Republican, and I've been dealing with Marco Rubio since local politics in South Miami, and then in state politics, and now. And I just have to say, she is an outstanding leader.
Yeah.
She came out and said, if they'll do this to me, a naval aviator with top security clearance and a U.S. House of Representatives, member of the U.S. House of Representatives, what will they do to you?
Exactly.
And she'll stand there and say, I'm here and I'm running, so I'll take the heat. You don't have to.
Yeah.
That's the kind of leadership the Democrats need right now.
I agree. And this apartment building in Chicago that was raided, I mean, this is insane. There were multiple people living in the building who are not Hispanic. I believe most of them were black. And they were dragged out and handcuffed and shoved into a van, and their apartments were ransacked, and their furniture was smashed, and their electronics were stolen. And I mean, these guys are out of control. This is dangerous stuff.
I just think there's no line that they will not cross.
It's increasingly looking that way, Skip. And you've got Stephen Miller out there celebrating torture. I mean, it's just welcome to the fascist states of America. Skip, I got to move along, but thanks for the call. Spot on. And thanks for letting us know about Mikey Sherrill, or, reminding us. Marshall in Asheville, North Carolina. Hey, Marshall, what's on your mind today?
Well, in response to that unprecedented meeting of top military officers, I published a reassurance plan for democracy on my Substack. It's a citizens-led, nonpartisan framework where ordinary citizens and local leaders can first voice their support for the military's constitutional oath, creating a clear mandate for senior officers to publicly reaffirm that they serve the Constitution, not any individual, party, or faction. The full plan and draft citizen petition are live now, and the goal is to build this civic scaffolding before a bigger crisis hits.
Yeah. Okay. Marshall, I think the problem right now is not going to be our military. I suspect that they're probably going to hold the line. It's ICE. We've got a federal agency here now that has a larger budget than the FBI, which has 35,000 employees. It's and they are growing like a weed, and they're bringing in people whose basically it seems like your only credential has to be that you're a white supremacist, Christian nationalist or something, and willing to kick down doors and drag naked children out into the street and separate them from their parents. It's nuts. Marshall, thank you for the call. George in Cripple Creek, Virginia. Hey, George, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom, you know how NATO is considering shooting down Russian aircraft that violate NATO airspace?
Yes.
Well, this actually happened in November 2015 when Turkey shot down a two-seater Sukhoi 24 Russian aircraft, and one of the pilots survived. But after that, Russia imposed such severe economic sanctions, and President Erdogan claimed that NATO support was so tepid that he had to reorient toward, placating Putin, and bought the S-400 Russian anti-defense missile system, and thus was locked out of the F-35 program.
Mm-hmm. How does that, George? I mean, you're a security expert, and you speak and read Russian and all that kind of sort of thing. How does that affect? I mean, here you've got Turkey; they're a member of NATO, and so they have access to all the top secret information in NATO. And yet, he's also sucking up to Putin, and he's got a defense agreement with Putin in Russia. I mean, how does that work? Why is NATO tolerating that?
I don't know, Turkey has the largest land army in NATO, and I wouldn't be surprised if Erdogan is passing on information to Putin, since, like you said, he has access to all those NATO secret documents.
Yeah. Yeah, this is wild stuff. I mean, this is autocracy on display. And Erdogan is right up there at the top of the list of modern dictators, people who were elected to office and then flipped their nations into autocracies. So
yeah, he's been, 10, 15 years president of Turkey?
Yeah, I think he's planning on being there until he dies. I mean, it's...
Yeah, right. Dictator for life.
Yeah, just like Trump wants to do, apparently.
Right.
George, thank you for the call. It is always a high point of the week to hear from you. Thank you.
Well, keep up the good work, Tom, and enjoy listening here on Sirius.
Thank you very much. Good talking to you. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
I'll be right back with more of your calls in just a moment. Stay with us. And welcome back. Excuse me. Teresa in Bellevue, Washington. Hey, Teresa, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. Hey, thanks for your rant, and thanks for reminding us about the crowd size issue when Trump first got inaugurated. And it really reminded me, there's a scene in George Orwell's 1984, which we all need to be rereading, where they hold up the 5 fingers or the 4. 2 + 2 = 5. They're trying to convince Winston, the protagonist, and he's resisting because he only sees 4 fingers.
Right.
But they're saying that you see 5. So it's like just this psychological attack on reality that is just Trump is just straight up 1984.
I read that book in 2000 when I was in the bush in Australia, traveling along the Lockhart River up in northern Australia with a couple of friends, an Aboriginal guy, King Tommy George, and another fellow. Both of them were Aboriginal. And I was out of my time zone, by 12 hours or whatever it is, and having trouble sleeping. And I was reading myself to sleep with that book, and I kept having these wild nightmares. I had to stop reading it because, it just was so dark. And I never thought that would be America, but here we are.
Yeah, and there's a reason all the great religions and wisdom traditions have as at least one of their precepts is do not lie.
Yeah. And that's the foundation of the modern Republican Party. It's tragic. Teresa, thank you. Thank you for the call, and thanks for pointing that out. Sue in Belmont, Michigan. Hey, Sue, thanks for watching Free Speech TV. What's up?
I have something that I found on Facebook, but I'm not going to read the whole thing because there wouldn't be enough time. But
you can summarize it in your own words.
Okay, well, some of it I need to read, but I won't read all of it. There's a dichotomy going on views about Charlie Kirk. On one hand, you have people who see him as a hero and sticking to his Christian beliefs, and on the other hand, you see people who are threatened by his rhetoric. And you probably heard Jimmy Kimmel talking about how his Charlie's wife Erica said she forgives the shooter, and while she's crying and grieving, and then right after that, and this is probably when you decided to turn it off. Okay. Then, just a minute. I'm trying to find it a second.
Well, just tell us from your own memory. You've read it.
Okay. Trump comes on, and she talks about hate. Hate, where she talks about hate does not end hate. We are to love everyone.
Yeah, she quotes Jesus and Trump quotes Satan, basically.
Okay, but she says we're to love our enemies. And he responds by saying, I hate my enemies.
Yeah.
I don't want the best for him.
Yeah.
And so...
Trump is not a Christian. I mean, he never goes to church. He doesn't follow the precepts of Christ. It's crazy. And yeah, Sue, thank you. I'm sorry we're out of time, but tip on when you call into any talk show host, any talk show program, always make your biggest point first. And then if you need backup to prove that, you deliver that afterwards. We'll be right back. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. America is at a crossroads. In my new book, The Last American President, I reveal how Donald Trump isn't a one-off. He's a product of a decades-long scheme by billionaires and corporate oligarchs to destroy our democracy from within. You'll learn how Trump's psychopath father and also his mentor, Roy Cohn, molded him into a weapon for authoritarianism. How billionaire networks built the machinery that made his presidency inevitable, and how our democracy is dying from an empathy deficit that treats human suffering as acceptable collateral damage for profit. But authoritarianism is not inevitable. We can still reform, resist, and reclaim our democracy if we act now. This isn't about left or right. It's about democracy versus authoritarianism, about whether government still serves people or billionaires. The stakes couldn't be higher. Learn the truth and find out how you can save our democracy with The Last American President, my new book. More information at hartmanreport.com.
He stacked the courts with bought-out men to drag us back to God knows when. Rights erased with the stroke of a pen.
Welcome back. 51 minutes past the hour. Picking up your calls here. Dave in Holyoke, Massachusetts. Hey, Dave, what's up?
Hi, it's great to talk to you.
Thank you.
You know, I was thinking back to that little confab with all the generals and Trump and Hegseth addressing them and how they all sat there stone-faced and everything. And then I thought, well, that's all well and good. But I was thinking back then to the last days of the Marcos administration when there had been demonstrations in the streets for weeks, and the military was in the streets, but they hadn't done much. But then Marcos decided that he'd had enough, and he ordered the troops to open fire on the demonstrators, and the troops refused, and that was what ended up breaking the back of the Marcos regime. And I have to say, as sad as I am to say this, I don't think our military has it in them to refuse a direct order from the president to open fire on demonstrators.
Yeah.
And
I suspect you're right, Dave, sadly.
Pardon?
I suspect you're right.
Well,
I mean, Trump decapitated the senior leadership of our military and replaced, as much as he could, replaced them with toadies.
If I could make just one more real quick point. The Nuremberg tribunals established the principle that I was just following orders is not a defense against war crimes. But I think what people forget is that in order to have Nuremberg trials in the first place, we had to utterly defeat Nazi Germany, just bring them to their knees. And that is not going to happen here.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a long conversation on the phone yesterday with a friend of mine who's got a Substack, Daniel Pinchbeck. He's got a great Substack newsletter. And it's like, what are we going to do? I mean, it's getting really tough to figure this stuff out. Dave, thanks for the call.
Sure.
I got to run along. Thank you. Randy in Iron River, Michigan. Hey, Randy, what's on your mind today?
Oh, Tom, you come up really quick here. I got to tell you why we are the gold standard here in Michigan for policing. Our cops are flat out getting it done. When in 2018. In 2018, we made it, before we could have recreational marijuana, we had a bill signed into law that we got to keep track of every single accident on Michigan highways. You can bring this up and Google it, and it'll tell you every single accident. Listen to this. We asked our cops then to please keep track of all the drugs in our state and get rid of our illegal drug problem. Listen to this. And last year, in 2024, Tom, our cops we only had 980 illegal arrests for driving accidents in Michigan highways. It is absolutely outstanding. And how can you do better than that? I want to see any other state in the United States that's got less than 980 accidents in 24 months, or in the last 12 months. Is that not awesome, Tom?
It is, Randy. I grew up in Michigan. I learned how to drive in Michigan. It's just an absolutely great state, and it's really the microcosm of America. It's one of the, if not the most diverse state in the United States, racially, religiously. It's a remarkable place, and I love Michigan. It's my brothers still live there. And Louise and I get back as often as we can, and it's just, I'm with you. Randy, thank you for the call from Iron Mountain, Michigan. Ed in Redmond, Washington. Hey, Ed, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. Good to talk to you. I had a question for you. It's kind of complicated. See if I can spit it out here. It was on this continuing resolution and the lie that the GOP keeps saying about how they don't want to give benefits to migrants. Mm-hmm. Somebody told me that the Democrats want to give migrants back their temporary protected status, and if they had their temporary protected status, they would be able to receive benefits. So part of them signing on with the
but those people are not, quote, illegal immigrants, and that's the big lie that Mike Johnson and the Republicans are promoting is that Democrats want to give health care to illegal immigrants. If you're legally in this country, you should have access to health care. I mean, we said you can be here, and we said we want to keep our population that is here healthy. It's just, it's good for the entire country.
Right. So did those people that were migrants, or they became illegal when they lost that temporary protected status?
They would lose their health care too.
They would lose it too, but they lost it when they the big ugly bill. Is that correct?
I don't know. I know that the Medicaid cuts. I don't know that they have anything to do with immigration status. And they don't kick in until January 2027, so that we'll go through the November elections next year without having had the impact of those Medicaid cuts. So you're not going to see people kicked out of nursing homes for another 18 months. What we are, or 15 or whatever that is. But what we are seeing right now, because the Affordable Care Act subsidies expired yesterday, or the day before yesterday, is that ACA policies are going to go up dramatically on the first of this year, or the first of the coming year, the end of this year. And the letters are going to be going out from the insurance companies this week and next week. And next week and the week after, people are going to start getting letters telling them how much they're going to pay for insurance. And it's going to be a shock. And it's going to affect all of us, not just people on the Affordable Care Act. Because when the insurance pool shrinks, in order to stay profitable, the insurance companies have to raise prices. Ed, thanks for the call.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free, and you can sign up at ThomHartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the HartmannReport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at ThomHartmann.com. So check them all out at ThomHartmann.com and HartmannReport.com.
We say fight back!
Our book today is America on Fire by Dr. Elizabeth Hinton. The subtitle, The Untold Story of Police Violence and Black Rebellion Since the 1960s. I'm reading from the introduction. On a cold Monday at the start of February, Joseph McNeil, Franklin McCain, Ezell Blair Jr., and David Richmond sat down at a whites-only lunch counter at Woolworth's in Greensboro, North Carolina. A waiter refused to serve the young men and suggested they order takeout instead. The four North Carolina A&T students remained at the counter. The store manager approached and asked them to leave. Still, they did not move. A police officer arrived, slapping his nightstick in his hand in an attempt to intimidate. Rather than allow the students' offense against Jim Crow to continue, the manager of the store closed the store for the day. 24 black students returned on Tuesday. Over 50 black students and 3 white students participated in the sit-in on the next day, Wednesday, February 3rd, 1960. News of the protests spread, and soon the sit-in movement had expanded to 55 cities and 13 states. By April, over 50,000 students were involved. Conceived and organized entirely by young people, the sit-in movement ultimately led to the founding of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC, SNCC, which was run by activists such as John Lewis and Stokely Carmichael. As a Fisk student, Lewis participated in the sit-ins in Nashville, Tennessee, and he would go on to steer the Freedom Riders in the summer of 1961 and speak at the March on Washington in 1963. Carmichael joined the sit-in movement as a high school student and would famously call for Black Power at the SNCC rally in Greenwood, Mississippi in 1966. Together, Lewis, Carmichael, and tens of thousands of other young black Americans signaled that their generation was prepared to risk their lives for freedom and equality. From Greensboro onward, the sit-ins helped build momentum and support for racial justice. The students in Greensboro engaged in a nonviolent protest to demand full integration, the right to vote, equal educational opportunities, decent jobs, protection against white supremacist terrorism, and an end to police violence. These were the central aims of the civil rights movement more broadly. By the end of the decade, black students at North Carolina A&T State University were still protesting, but now they were destroying property, assaulting police officers, and shooting in the direction of law enforcement, if not coming close to killing cops in self-defense. In May 1969, after black students at Greensboro's James B. Dudley High School were arrested, brutalized, and tear gassed by police during a series of protests against arbitrary disciplinary measures, A&T students came to the teenagers' defense. The confrontations between local police and black high school and college students led authorities to call the National Guard to A&T's campus, unleashing violence and repression that ended in the killing of sophomore Willie Grimes. A pivotal stop on the road to the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965, by the end of the decade, Greensboro was a site of sustained violence. It was far from unique in this regard. Between 1964 and 1972, but especially between 68 and 72, the United States endured internal violence on a scale not seen since the Civil War. Every major urban center in the country burned during those 8 years. Violence flared up not only in archetypal ghettos, including Harlem and Watts, and in majority black cities such as Detroit and Washington, D.C. It appeared in Greensboro, North Carolina, in Gary, Indiana, in Seattle, Washington, and countless places in between. Every city, small or large, where black residents lived in segregated, unequal conditions. In the North and the South, the East and the West, the Rust Belt and the Sun Belt, black people threw rocks and bottles at police, shot at them with rifles, smashed the windows of businesses and institutions, hurled firebombs, and plundered local stores. These events, what we commonly call riots, or what people who are to the left of center sometimes refer to as civil disturbances, caused hundreds of millions of dollars of property damage. Most immediately, they shaped the lives of the store owners whose businesses were destroyed, of the parents who lost their teenage sons to the police, and of the firefighters and cops who were harmed or killed. But ever since, Americans have been living in a nation and a national culture created in part by the extreme violence of the 1960s and the early 1970s. The aftershocks of that era have, at times, taken the form of mass violence to which all Americans have been witness. In Miami in 1980, in Los Angeles in 1992, in Cincinnati in 2001, and in more recent years, in Ferguson, Missouri, Baltimore, Maryland, and Minneapolis, Minnesota. The enduring impact of the violence of the 60s and 70s has been felt more regularly and more acutely by black people in American cities who faced new policing practices that emerged under the banner of the war on crime. The routine stop and frisks that attacked people's dignity, the breaking up of community gatherings, the presence of armed, uniformed officers in the hallways of under-resourced public schools, and more. Such strategies help repress mass violence as a regular phenomenon, but they ironically made further riots inevitable. Those strategies remain in place today. The book, America on Fire.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Hey, welcome to the second hour of our program. On the line with us, our buddy Phil Ittner, the veteran war correspondent based out of Kyiv, Ukraine. He is the host of the podcast On the Edge. Ittner Philip over on YouTube and on Blue Sky and all that sort of thing. Phil, welcome back to the program. Yeah, back at you. Hang on just a second. My phone just told me that I had an emergency fall, which I did. I guess I'm waving my hands around too much, or my watch rather, my Apple Watch. So speaking of emergency falls, how are things going in Ukraine?
Well, I mean, since last we spoke, we had one of the worst attacks on the capital here in Kyiv that we've had since the full-scale invasion. Saturday night, leading into Sunday and then well into Sunday morning. It started approximately 10 p.m., 11 p.m. Saturday, and it just went for 12 hours straight. And it was air raid sirens, anti-aircraft fire, some Russian ordnance, both drones and missiles, got through, penetrated the air defense. And it was just constant. It was absolutely horrifying. I mean, terrifying, nobody slept. The anxiety levels were through the roof. The very next day, I went out on Sunday after eventually things did kind of clear and the all clear was given, and shops were closed because nobody had slept a wink, the entire night. And it just was this atmosphere in the city that was palpable of just how intense that attack had been. Now, subsequent to that, it's been relatively quiet, touch wood. But that was quite the thing. Saturday into Sunday was quite the attack.
My sense of it, just from reading the news reports and things, and of course you're there, so that's why I'm running this by you for a reality check. But my sense of it is that Ukraine has done some real damage in the last month or two to Russia. You're seeing massive gasoline and diesel fuel shortages across Crimea, across large parts of Russia. The price of fuel has exploded. Their economy is teetering. You've got Russia talking about, pulling the Russian funds. It seems like this burst of activity might be a sign of desperation on Putin's part. What's your sense of these things?
Well, you're right. The Ukrainians have been purposefully attacking not only fossil fuels, be it natural gas or petroleum or unrefined oil as an export, but also their domestic consumption. So Pardon me. So, I mean, Putin had promised that the war would not touch Russia. Well, it clearly is starting to.
Yeah.
And I think part of the timing of all of this is that we are clearly moving into summer is over. It's not we're moving into fall. We're already in colder weather, wetter weather. This is a period of time where the ground turns into a very sticky kind of mud. Then unless you are on hard paved roads, you're not able to traverse, certainly not with heavy armor. And so the offensive, the Russian summer offensive, is pretty much over. It doesn't mean the fighting is going to stop, but it's going to be a different pace. It's going to be a different kind of atmosphere because you not only will you not be able to move forward as easily as you would like, but you will not be able to dig in and hold positions. And then, moving from the rainy period where the mud is, we're going to be moving into winter when things freeze. And that is even worse for trying to dig in if you were to advance. So the Russians have pretty much gotten as far as they're going to get in this fighting season, in this summer offensive. And so perhaps that is playing into this idea of we're going to, now kind of change tactics, and instead of trying to gain ground out east, we're going to go back to our old tactics. Moscow is thinking we're going to go back to the old tactics that we've used all throughout this entire full-scale war, which is basically to deprive Ukrainians of heat and electricity. Right. And so lots of people are starting to think it's because this Russian offensive has failed that they're now transitioning to this new thing that we'll go through the cold months with, instead of direct fighting and drone activity and what have you out east.
It's going to be a tough one. It's going to be a very tough
one.
Anything happening on the political front? And has any American aid showed up since Trump became president?
There is an American aid in transit. It's been verified. It is coming. Apparently, Patriot missile systems and ammunition are included in that. So we shall see. I always kind of am cautious because of the fickle nature of the Trump administration, and of course I refuse to call him the Secretary of War. The Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, is equally unreliable. So I'll believe it when I see it, but I am told by Ukrainian sources, both in the military and in kind of the government sphere, that yes, indeed, it does look like the weapons are en route and will be here imminently. So that is a good thing.
Yeah.
The other major issue that is being bounced around here on the European continent, but certainly with Ukraine's intensive preoccupation on this, is the idea that is growing in certain European capitals that they need to seize Russian assets, liquidate Russian assets, and buy weapons for Ukraine, and also to keep the Ukrainian economy flowing. So there is growing voices here on the continent that Russia started this war. Russia is responsible for this war, and as such, they should be paying for this war. This, of course, scares certain banking sectors within Europe, because they do not want other potential investors and people who are going to deposit money in their banks to think that if your government does something that the international community does not like, that on a whim these Western bankers, where for years and years, money has been, that's the safest bet. You put it in a Swiss bank account, put it in the City of London, put it in Belgian banks. These are reliable, and they will not, eradicate they will not liquidate your holdings. The counter argument to that is you make this an exception to the rule. You say this is specifically because Russia started a war. We are not setting a precedent. We are not setting a rule or changing a rule. This is directly targeted at a nation state that has committed, war crimes. And is involved in an illegal war. It's still tricky, and these bankers are very cautious because they want to keep that cash coming in as a safe place to deposit. But European leaders are also starting to recognize that a Europe dominated by Moscow would also have ramifications for financial institutions in Europe. And so,
you think?
Exactly. So, yeah. So, but I am, and I don't want to get, out over my skis, but I'm hearing more and more talk of this in a lot of different European capitals about, like, we have to pay for this war. We don't want this war on our doorstep. The Ukrainians are willing to fight if we are willing to fund them. And so that's kind of what we're starting to hear this week.
Final question.
Than previously.
Final question here. What are you hearing about the possibility of a NATO response to Russian incursions? And we've got now so far, Romania, Estonia, and Poland, where Russian planes or Russian drones have flown over, and now you've got all these Scandinavian and Northern European airports that have been shut down by drones that are believed to be from Russia. In fact, they think that they may be being launched off a Russian tanker out in the ocean. How do you see that playing out, and what are you hearing about all this? Because apparently Putin has said, if you shoot down one of our planes, we'll consider that an act of war, and we will consider a nuclear option.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's been such a shift in Putin's credibility when it comes to kind of threats. He makes threats a lot, and then he doesn't follow through on them. Nobody wants to play chicken when it comes to nuclear weapons. So, nobody is taking this lightly. However, I do think that it is not getting the desired result that Putin wanted. Putin wanted, it is pretty clear, because it is his modus operandi, divide and conquer, divide and conquer, divide and conquer. So if you can get Estonia to say, oh my gosh, we have to reserve our air defenses for the defense of our own nation, and we cannot provide to other nations, and certainly not Ukraine. And then Poland says the same thing, and then Romania says the same thing, and the Scandinavians. What ends up happening is everybody is only spending and only preparing for their own individual defenses. Again, divide and conquer. But it hasn't worked. It hasn't worked.
So
what
far.
we are hearing from these, so far, absolutely right. But what we are hearing from these capitals and these European leaders is, we see you, we know what you're trying to do, and we are not going to let you stop us from aiding Ukraine for our own selfish needs. Now, we'll see what happens when the populations of those individual countries have to decide between social programs and weapons.
Thom Hartmann Program.
And that's what Putin wants.
Yeah, I totally get it. The great Phil Ittner, the On the Edge podcast. Check it out. Phil, thanks so much.
Always a pleasure.
Great talking. And welcome back. Tom in Media, Pennsylvania. Hey, Tom, what's up?
Yes, Tom, talking about the Republicans ending the filibuster.
Well, I was talking about them breaking it, not ending it. There's a big difference between the two.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, right now, let's look at the endgame. If the Republicans do nothing, eventually the Democrats are going to come back. They're going to get enough senators that are in there.
I don't think so.
I do. I mean, how long are they going to hold out? Until SNAP benefits could be.
It's going to depend on public opinion. You know, if public opinion turns against one party or the other, that's probably the party that's going to cave in. And right now, you know, the Republicans have the public opinion advantage in terms of media. You know, they have all these right-wing media outlets, and you know, I was reading, there's a Substack newsletter that follows Fox, and they report on what was on Fox's show every day, you know, all the Fox shows every day. And over on Fox, they're just pounding on, you know, the Democrats shut down the government. And you've got, you know, all these government agencies now saying this illegally, by the way, in violation of the Hatch Act. But I don't know if it's going to stick, Tom. I mean, we'll have to just wait and see. I suspect you're right, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think it will, because eventually there's going to be pressure on the Democratic senators. The Republican senators could say, look, you know, other than Rand Paul, who doesn't vote for anything, we want to just put the government back on the status quo. It's the Democrats still want to change. So I think that eventually they're going to cave. Yeah. I really do. And I can't see any other endgame.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I hope you're wrong, Tom, but who knows? Tom, thanks for the call. Yeah. Jordan in Seattle. Hey, Jordan, what's up?
Hey, thanks for taking my call, Tom. I had 2 points, but the first one I wanted to propose to you is if you could speak a little bit about what rights Americans have. And I'm viewing this through the lens of what just took place in Chicago. I saw the video of that apartment complex where these so-called ICE agents broke in, took everybody out, hog-tied them, made them wait. And I'm watching this through the lens of other videos where these guys barely look professional.
Yeah,
I mean, I saw the video of the guy dropping
And by the way, Jordan, if that apartment building had not been full of black and brown people, but instead had been full of middle-class white people, there would be hell to pay right now, which tells you, you know, which is a whole other story about America right now.
Well, and that's a great point. Thank you for making that. But my initial thought is at what point are these guys going to get shot at as they come through the door? Because they're doing such a terrible job. I mean, I don't know who on the street is a police officer and who isn't now, because there's so many of these guys running around in tactical gear, and it seems to me it's only a matter of time.
Well, we've already had 2 situations where guys pretending to be ICE officers have raped women, have abducted and raped women. We've had 2 incidents of that now in the United States.
Wow, I was not aware of that.
Yeah.
But
yeah, you can Google it.
I mean, what did we not know?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, how many people have been robbed by people pretending to be ICE officers, and it just, you know, didn't hit the news? I mean, these rapes are fairly high profile. And how many rapes have happened where the women did not report it? I mean, you know, what, 70, 80, 90% of rapes are never reported? So, and that was by people pretending to be ICE officers. God only knows what the ICE officers are doing. Jordan, I got to run, but thanks for the call. And thanks for listening to KBCS. I'll be right back. Well, I'll be back with you in 60 seconds. Stay with us. Missed my opening rant today? It's usually published over at HartmannReport.com, where you can read it and share it with your friends for free. Check it out, HartmannReport.com. Did you know that the ancient Roman Republic, you know, which for 480 years was actually a democratic republic before Julius Caesar kind of ended the democracy phase and replaced it with the autocracy phase, that they were brought down by a very small group of very rich people. The richest man in ancient Rome was Marcus Licinius Crassus. He was the richest guy, the billionaire of Rome. And he frankly hated the Roman free bread for all welfare system. It was being paid for with his tax dollars, after all. So him and Pompey the Great and a few other rich guys got together, and they basically crashed Rome. They turned it into an oligarchy and then into a tyranny. And the parallels to what Trump is doing right now are absolutely shocking. There's an article about it over at HartmannReport.com titled "American Caesar: Trump's Path to Power Mirrors Rome's Darkest Days." Check it out.
They came for Ukraine in the dead of night. a sovereign land lit by freedom's light. Sirens wailed as the skies turned red, but Ukraine stood while the cowards fled.
Welcome back. 24 minutes past the hour. So Donald Trump has revived family separations. Stephen Miller must be giggling with glee. This is from Mavi Singh over at The Guardian. The Trump administration has revived the practice of separating families in order to coerce immigrants and asylum seekers to leave the U.S., attorneys and former immigration officials allege. In several cases, officials have retaliated against immigrants who challenged deportation orders by forcibly separating them from their children, a Guardian investigation found. The officials misclassified the children as unaccompanied minors before placing them in government-run shelters or foster homes. Can you imagine? I mean, they've kept thousands of children away from their relatives. This, back in the first administration, they disappeared 5,600 children, and roughly 1,000 of them are still missing 7 years later. This is just so wrong. Meanwhile, let me just rant about that for a minute, and I'll get to United Healthcare on the other side of the brick, or what's happening with our insurance. Well, actually, I've got a minute. Here it is. Meanwhile, United Healthcare says it's going to stop offering Medicare Advantage plans in 109 U.S. counties next year, impacting 180,000 members. But then it goes on to say the company, most plan closures will occur in rural areas, and the company will cease operating over 100 plans representing about 600,000 members in all, largely comprised of preferred provider organizations, PPOs. So if you have a Medicare Advantage plan through United Healthcare, they're fixing to dump apparently about 600,000 people. And their spokesman, Bobby Hunter, said increased utilization has created headwinds that no organization can ignore. In other words, too many old people are using too much medical stuff, and so they're going to dump them. This is what I keep warning people. You sign up for Medicare Advantage. After 12 months, you can no longer go back to old Medicare with a Medigap policy that has a fixed price. After 12 months, they can charge whatever they basically want for a Medigap policy if you're off real Medicare. And so you go on Medicare Advantage for more than a year and you're screwed. And then, you're on it, you sign up when you're 65 and you're healthy and you're getting the grocery benefits and all this other crap. And then, a couple of years down the road, you get sick and you're screwed. And if you get expensively sick, they simply dump you. Not specifically United Healthcare, but generally speaking.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
27 minutes past the hour. Just keep that in mind when the ads start rolling out in a couple of weeks when the open enrollment period begins. We'll be right back. Our book today in the Thom Hartmann Book Club is The Brainwashing of My Dad, How the Rise of the Right-Wing Media Changed a Father and Divided Our Nation and How We Can Fight Back by Jen Senko. This is from Chapter 6, How Talk Radio Hijacked My Dad. In 1984, Reagan was reelected in a landslide victory against liberal Democrat Walter Mondale. That year was also when everything began to change for my dad and our family. In 1984, Dad retired from his job with the federal government at age 62. Both my parents missed being near the shore, so they moved back to New Jersey and settled in Toms River, a town where there was a large retired population. Still energetic, my father got a part-time engineering job 3 or 4 days a week, necessitating a long solo commute by car. He didn't want to waste time on music while driving. He wanted to be stimulated mentally, and he discovered talk radio to keep himself company. At the time, Bob Grant was the dominant talk radio personality. Often called the conservative radio, Grant was an openly racist, sexist, far-right shock jock. On his WABC radio show, he referred to blacks and Hispanics as savages. He believed them to be inferior, and he once even called Martin Luther King Jr. a slimeball. With his combative and testy style, he was considered a pioneer of the talk radio format. Soon, Grant became my dad's commuting buddy. I didn't know Bob Grant from Joe Namath, but I did know I didn't care for his style of yelling at callers or hanging up on them if they disagreed with him. My mother was not a fan of Grant's either, and she delighted in telling me the story of how she ran into him one day. She was at the Ocean County Mall eatery, sitting at a table having lunch when she saw Grant walk in. She recognized him, and when he passed her table, she asked, "You're Bob Grant, aren't you?" He said, "Yes, I am." She said, "Oh, my husband likes you, but I don't." He had been walking away and turned to look back at my mother and gave a little laugh. She said she just sat there at the table and did not smile back. Gradually, it seemed my dad started becoming more agitated after listening to Bob Grant. Eventually, he became consistently more irritable, excitable, and easy to anger. Little did we know, a metamorphosis was beginning. Along with massive deregulation in the communications industry, there were several other factors that led to talk radio's explosion of popularity in the 1980s. The first was that music had moved from the AM dial to the high-fidelity sound of FM, and thus left a void on the AM dial. Broadcasters realized that filling that blank airspace with mainstream news wouldn't make much money. However, entertainment made money, and talk radio was entertainment at its finest, even when it masqueraded as news coverage. Human conversation didn't benefit from high-fidelity sound the way music did, so talk radio filled the void on the AM radio waves perfectly. The second contributor to talk radio's rise was the new accessibility of satellite technology, allowing anyone to broadcast a show nationally. And the third was the fact that when 1-800 numbers became available, you could have callers call in from all over the country. These factors combined to make a pretty powerful storm. The format of talk radio was, of course, not new. The format first debuted in the 1920s, continuing with Father Charles Coughlin's controversial and anti-Semitic radio broadcasts in the 1930s. Coughlin has often been referred to as the father of hate radio, and he paved the way for all that has come in his medium. Many of the most famous conservative talk radio personalities modeled themselves after the 1950s sensation Joe Pine. His show, It's Your Nickel, consisted of Pine debating his opinions with people calling in. Calls often culminated with him insulting the caller, to the delight of his audience. The format of talk radio evolved from there, but many of the most popular shows and hosts, including Bob Grant, Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity, and Glenn Beck, have stuck with the confrontational tone and high-emotion interactions that these early hosts introduced. There haven't been many successful liberal talk radio hosts. Ed Schultz, Randy Rhoads, and Alan Colmes tried to make inroads, but simply failed to draw a large audience, in quotes. You may wonder why conservative talk radio programs have been so phenomenally popular while equivalent liberal shows have foundered. Aside from big money to support it, the secret seems to lie in the inflammatory approach favored by these so-called conservative hosts. Abram Brown of Forbes says of liberal talk radio shows, it's not the same thing as a Limbaugh or a Hannity. It's more general, not really railing against the system. No one's yelling, we need to get rid of the Republicans. They're the worst thing that happened in this country. But you'll hear conservative radio hosts say that about liberals on their programs. Brown makes another good point that speaks to that. Tell your audience that the mainstream media is corrupt and biased, that there's more than that there's all the more reason to turn to your conservative talk radio to get the truth. Anger is a hot commodity. Finding an enemy is even hotter. Or as Ailes might say, it's the emotions, stupid. He did not actually say that. A little known but very chilling example of how powerfully influential radio can be is the 1994 Rwandan genocide, where an estimated 800,000 citizens were brutally murdered by their fellow citizens, the Hutus. This happened after an intense radio campaign that started in 1993 dehumanized and demonized one group, the Tutsis. Militia groups were formed, and police and soldiers joined them in the killing. Samantha Power, who later served as the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, said killers often carried a machete in one hand and a transistor radio in the other hand. Dad discovers Rush Limbaugh. About a year after working part-time in his long commute, my dad officially retired. The book, The Brainwashing of My Dad, by Jen Senko. Share the Thom Hartmann program with your friends. Our podcast, The Hartmann Report, is absolutely free and available wherever fine podcasts are available. And the entire 3-hour podcast is available over at ThomHartmann.com. There is a long history of right-wing, conservative, Republican-appointed Supreme Court justices becoming liberals, or at least becoming reasonable. Earl Warren is probably the best known example. He was, a right-wing governor of California. He was a hard-ass Alameda County prosecutor, a district attorney, and when Eisenhower put him on the court, a year later he did the Brown versus Brown v. Board of Education case. He ended discrimination, racial discrimination in schools, or at least, tried to end it. So why are Republican billionaires now sucking up to conservative members of the Supreme Court? In my opinion, it's not a quid pro quo. They're not trying to get specific votes on specific issues. They're trying to prevent them from doing what Earl Warren did, which is waking up and voting for the benefit of America rather than just their patrons. There's a whole piece about this over at HartmannReport.com. Check it out.
Born in a mansion of winners and losers, kindness was weakness, shame never shown. Roy Cohn whispered, attack and destroy, a gilded facade built on failure alone. The hunger for power, the need for control, a perfect machine for a heart without soul. The last American president. Is this how the story ends? Democracy breaking, the truth forsaken. We rise or we descend. Reform, resist, remember. The call is heaven sent. Or we'll write the history books of the last American president.
Welcome back. 36 minutes past the hour. Picking up your calls here. Bill in St. Helens, Oregon. Hey, Bill, what's up?
Hey, Tom, you and I are contemporaries, and I'm watching one of the most egregious constitutional violations in the history of this country, and I'm not talking about the 10th Amendment. For some reason, I'll get to this in a second. Okay, so here's the deal. We have 50 sovereign units that have agreed to work together to form a nation called the United States of America. Back in the days of the framing, there were 13 sovereign units. We called them colonies, all right? Now, one of the biggest fears, if you read the Federalist Papers, was a government overreach, a government so powerful that it could usurp and overwhelm, the power of a state.
Right.
Okay, so here's what I'm getting at. So what we're ignoring, and it seems to be getting short shrift, it's not even hardly being covered, is the Article 4, Section 4, which flat says a state has to invite federal troops into it. Now, back in the time of the framing of the Constitution, I have zero doubt in my mind, Tom, that the Constitution never would have been ratified because the colonies were terrified of an overreaching federal government. And that little caveat, which we all seem to be ignoring, that federal troops have to be invited into a state, is just being ignored. And this is blowing my mind.
Section 4 says the U.S. shall guarantee to every state in this union a republican form of government and shall protect each of them against invasion and on application of the legislature or of the executive when the legislature cannot be convened against domestic violence.
Ding, ding, ding.
How does that? I don't get where you're saying that this means that a state can prevent the federal government from coming into the state.
A state is a sovereign entity. A state has its own constitution. It has its own courts. It has its own legislature. It has its own executive. Mm-hmm. A state is a sovereign unit that agrees to work together with 49 other states.
Well, relatively sovereign. I mean, they were sovereign units under the Articles of Confederation, but the Constitution put the federal government above them. There's the supremacy clause in the Constitution.
Yes. Okay.
I think if you want to look at the Constitution for a violation, look at the Third Amendment.
I'm
so you
sorry,
can't
Tom,
quarter troops.
The troops aren't supposed to be there.
That's my point.
The state has the right. I personally think that Section 4 is much more relevant because it flat says you have to be invited. I'm just keep going back to the founding. Do you think the Constitution would have been ratified if the colonies didn't have some warm fuzzy that the federal government wouldn't overwhelm the states' rights with federal troops? They never would have. We wouldn't have a constitution today. They wouldn't. That's so important, and it's going to come up. This is going to be a major issue, and you know what? Okay, Tom, I'm just going to leave this at this. Almost every time I call, you just beat me up. You beat me up on bill of attainder about a year and a half ago, which it turns out a lawyer calls about 20 minutes later and said, Bill's absolutely right. We're a bill of attainder nation. Tom, I try and I try. I hope you think about this a little more and come back to it. Thank you.
Okay, will do, Bill. Thank you. Marie in Seattle. Hey, Marie, what's on your mind today?
So I think it's important that we're talking about Ukraine and what's going on there, and I applaud you for having that on there on the show
every Thursday
and having that correspondent there. But I'm really, really concerned about what's going on in Gaza and the flotilla having been taken over.
Oh, the flotilla got
and
nailed
kidnapped.
yesterday, yes.
Yeah, and I think we really need to talk about that farce of a peace deal that had no Palestinian input.
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, I'm appalled by that. Like, how, you know, and then Trump was basically like, if you don't answer this in 3 or 4 days, then the Israelis can do what they want.
Well, and Trump is chomping at the bit. He and his son-in-law want to build a Trump tower in Gaza. They want to turn Gaza. I mean, you know, it's oceanfront property on the Mediterranean. It's beautiful. It's got, you know, it's a seacoast that's worth, you know, $1 million an inch.
Beautiful?
You know?
Yeah, will it be so beautiful with the howls and screams of the dead and dying who are there?
Well, they will clear them out first. I mean, this looks to me like a classic example of genocide that Netanyahu has killed over 60,000 people. He's now stripping Gaza City. You know, kind of the last remaining city in Gaza is being bombed into smithereens. I'm astonished that it has taken the rest of the world this long. I mean, you know, Netanyahu had to route his plane very carefully around certain European countries on his way here to the United States for the UN meeting, because they would have taken him out of the sky and arrested him for crimes against humanity. I mean, he'd be in the dock in The Hague right now, along with Duterte, waiting for a trial. You know, and now, you know, the stopping the flotilla. I mean, you've got these people who, for a while, you had the Spanish and Italian navies escorting them.
Right, and then they chickened out.
That's right. They didn't want to get in a fight with the Israelis. And
it's like Israel is a little tiny country. If you think about it, what's the size compared to a state in the U.S., right? It's so small.
Yeah.
Why do they have control like this?
Because they've got outsized weaponry. they're a nuclear armed
But we gave them. They didn't build it and get it themselves. We gave it to them.
I know, and they are just, you know, just grotesquely abusing the human rights of the people who live there.
I mean, so I think Germany is big into the guilt from the Nazis, right? They're big into that, so they can, like, Israel can do anything it wants, and Israel, you know, is their buddy now, right? Germany has a lot of guilt, right? Yeah. But, you know, it's not right that the Palestinians are being massacred and starved to death. I mean, like you had that thing about the Bushmen, right? Talking about hunger. I mean, I thought that was very apropos and almost eerie that you were talking about this when I was thinking so much about all those hungry babies that can't even get formula.
Yeah, people are literally starving to death right now in Gaza. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
It's disgusting. Israel is like Nazi wannabes, you know, and they're like, no, that's terrible. You can't say that. And it's like, well, I'll say it. Zionists are not Jewish. You know what I'm saying? That Jewish religion and Zionism.
Well, there's a bunch of Christian Zionists. I'll give you that. You know, people who think that there should be, you know, that Israel should be run by the Jews, and a lot of the Christian Zionists are doing that because they think that, you know, if they can convert 144,000 Jews to Christianity and then kill all the rest of them, that Jesus will return. I mean, there's just some really bizarre beliefs around this.
I mean, I've heard about that in the second coming of Christ and all this kind of stuff like that, and it's scary.
Oh, it's even in Israel. I mean, you know, you drive around Israel and there are bumper stickers on the cars of some of the ultra-Orthodox that say Mashiach now, you know, in Hebrew or in English. You know, I mean, you've got Jewish sects that are waiting for the Messiah. They're not waiting for Jesus. They're waiting for the first Jesus. You know, but it's and then you get the Christians who are waiting for the second Jesus. You know, for Jesus to come back, and all of this you know, religious stuff, you know, being used to justify this slaughter And of course you've got these extreme racists who are open about their racism in Netanyahu's cabinet, and that's the devil that he's made the deal with to hold on to power and to stay out of prison, by the way, because he's so corrupt. It's just breathtaking.
That it'll be whitewashed. I'm afraid it'll just fall off the radar. People will lose interest in it.
We'll continue to talk about it here. Marie, thank you for the call. Thank you. We'll be back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Talk media for the sane among us. I'll be back with your calls. And welcome back. Dave in Federal Way, Washington. So, Dave, what does a former intelligence analyst say about all this stuff?
Well, hey, Tom, first off, I just want to say I hope you're right, but I'm afraid you are wrong.
What?
The generals holding the line, as you said.
Yeah.
Look, a conservative, my boss he's mega MAGA, and he was really, on me about, did I hear Pete Hegseth's comments, right? How glorious they were. Look, I don't need to hear anything about Pete Hegseth. I mean, I already know. Look, for all we know, they were in there talking about the execution of Hassan Nadal, that Palestinian officer. It's going to be the first execution the military has done in years. He may have just been secretly advising the generals to be quiet on that. Publicly, what was he touting? Warrior ethos and rules of engagement. That's the one we need to be worried about. That's the let's take the gloves off and ignore international law, because all this, Tom, is about sovereignty. Dmitry Medvedev and Sergei Lavrov, we need to listen to what they said. Medvedev said Trump always comes back because politics in the age of social media, you have to have multiple positions on different topics, right? Lavrov said Russia defended global sovereignty in World War II, and America constantly violates it, and he said Yugoslavia, Libya, and Iraq were examples of that. And then he also said Gaza is an example of mass punishment. What Lavrov left out is Russia is doing the same thing to Ukraine. They are violating their sovereignty, and they are doing collective punishment on Ukraine.
Yeah.
Okay? The Ukrainians are not stupid. If Trump keeps talking, Ukraine does not need America to directly help them. What they need America to do is to be a counterweight globally. The only thing Hegseth and Trump can do to help Ukraine is stop the shadow fleet, all the oil, petroleum sanctions violations happening in the open seas.
Yeah. Well, they seized a ship yesterday or the day before.
Well, what's this got to do with anything?
The ship that they seized, they're suspecting that it's a drone launching platform, even though it looks like an oil tanker. Have you heard anything more on that, Dave?
Well, no, I mean, and here's my main point. Look, Tom, the World War I, World War II, we can criticize Woodrow Wilson all we want, but rights were advanced in those horrible wars. I'm afraid we are going to come to the ultimate horrible war, and rights are just going to dwindle and diminish, and authoritarianism democracy will be forgotten. Yeah. I mean, it may sound hyperbolic and over the top, but Trump is not stupid, and I think Trump is stupid, but his regime is not stupid, and you're overestimating the Republicans' value in democracy. Yeah. We have a political party that values it not at all. They don't value democracy at all, period.
I agree. I agree. I mean, and you can see that. And the people in the party who value democracy, like, Liz Warren and Adam Kinzinger, are out. Steve Schmidt, Tim Miller. I mean, all these people who worked on the Bush campaign and were inside the Republican Party or were elected Republicans themselves, who believed in the Constitution. They're toast. And there's more purges coming.
Yeah, you meant Liz Cheney, Tom. Have a good one.
Yeah, didn't I say Liz Cheney?
Warner.
Oh, I said Liz Warren. Oh, thank you, Dave. Thanks for correcting me.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Have a good one.
Thank you. You too. 49 minutes past the hour. Whew. We'll be right. That was a big error. We'll be right back. Stick around. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. So we have this major culture war going on in the United States. You've got Republicans trying to ban abortion. They're trying to ban books. Not just trying to, they're actually doing all of these things. Banning books, banning trans girls in sports, attacking basically the entire queer community. Whatever they can to try to sow division and hate, promoting Nazi memes, talking about how, Jews are paying to have black and brown people replace white people and all this kind of stuff. Why are billionaires doing this? Why are they funding these people? I mean, billionaires don't care about crime. They live in gated communities with private security. They don't care about public schools. Their kids go to private schools. They don't care about public transportation. They fly in private jets. Oh, yeah, that's right. If they can get us fighting against each other, if they can get us hating each other, we will ignore their efforts to cut their taxes and deregulate their industries. There's a whole video about it at tom.tv. Check it out. Welcome back. It's 10 minutes before the hour. Picking up your calls here. Caleb in Chicago. Hey, Caleb, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. Thank you for taking my call. I want to start by saying, you've been a big part of my life, listening to you now for, 10 plus years. So I just really mean this sincerely. As everything keeps changing, if we don't stop this momentum, I hope that you are making preparations for you and your family to be safe and possibly leave this country. But as I say that, I'm really concerned that we're all missing the boat. The billionaires, if they don't own every bit of the media, they're in they're purchasing it all.
Yeah.
And I really believe that a lot of this, I guess long story short, what we need to be talking about is the Epstein files. That is Trump's only kryptonite. And I believe the media, everybody is going silent on this because many of these billionaires are in the Epstein files.
Yep.
And I don't see any other way we're going to break through the media bubble because all they're talking about is how Democrats are bad. They carry the Republican message, even if it's 100% lies. Mm-hmm. But the Epstein story is the only thing that connects with these people. And I'm talking about the voters because they don't want to support someone who's been raping children.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree, Caleb, that we need to keep talking about it, and it keeps popping up, on this program and other venues. I also suspect, though, Caleb, that if the Epstein files came out and there was video of Donald Trump with a 14-year-old, and I suspect that there is, frankly. I can't come up with another reason why he would be so hysterical, so frantic to suppress these things and get, people like Pam Bondi to go along with it. But let's say that there is, video of that, because, we know that Epstein had literally thousands of hours of video of his, men having sex with underage girls that he was using to blackmail them. I mean, this is our labor secretary, or our commerce secretary, Howard Lutnick, came out and said this 2 days ago on a podcast. He said that, Epstein, he visited Epstein. Epstein had a massage table in his living room. He said, what, you would get a daily massage? And Epstein was like, yeah, and the right kind, And then Lutnick goes ahead. I mean, this guy's a billionaire and he's in Trump's cabinet. And he goes ahead and says, oh, and by the way, Epstein was the biggest blackmailer in history. Well, obviously, Epstein was blackmailing Trump along with everybody else, or it sure appears that way to me. But here's the concern, Caleb, is that even if that all came out, and even if there were video of it, I don't think half or maybe 3/4 of Trump's followers would leave him. As long as he hates black people and brown people, as long as he wants women to be subordinate to white men, as long as he's willing to cut taxes for billionaires, and as long as he's willing to deregulate giant industries, particularly the polluting industries, they're going to continue to support him, even if he's, proven to be a child rapist.
So let me share with you. I agree with you on every aspect except for this Epstein thing, because I talk to a lot of Republicans. I'm a business owner, as I've talked to you about before, and for some reason in the business community, a lot of the owners, for some reason, support this orange person. But I literally talk about tax breaks. I talk about, cutting food stamps for children. My wife delivers Meals on Wheels. They're going to cut that program. And I talk to them, and they can give a pass for everything except for when I say, so you really would support Trump if he raped children? And they're like, no. That's the only thing I can connect with them on.
Yeah.
So
no, I get that. And as I said, that's why I think we need to keep talking about it. And in fact, I had suggested that the Democrats should have made that a condition for reopening the government.
I'll leave you with this, Tom.
This is going to come back, Caleb. Once Adelita Grijalva gets sworn into office, and Mike Johnson's, procrastinating on that as much as he can, but it's just going to pop back up because she becomes the 218th vote on the discharge petition, and all of a sudden it's back in the news. So, we'll just have to see. Caleb, I got to move along, but thanks for the call. Good points all. I'm with you. Thank you. Jim in Auburn, New York. Hey, Jim, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. I think the Democrats should fund the government. I think they're playing into Trump's hand. He wants a government shutdown, just like you're talking about the Epstein files. He wants those to go away. As long as the government's not open, they're not talking about it.
I agree with you that Trump wants a shutdown, and the Republicans do, because they could stop this today if they simply, broke the Democrats' filibuster, which they do routinely now these days. So, there's an awful lot of performance art going on here, frankly, on both sides. I mean, the Democrats could be saying this. They could be saying, John Thune could break our filibuster tomorrow. I think that now at this moment, both sides think that there's some political advantage to them in this, and a lot of people are going to suffer as a consequence of it. But the high ground appears to be with the Democrats right now because they're defending health care.
Yeah, the thing is, though, Trump doesn't care, and the Republicans don't care because it doesn't affect them.
I think it goes beyond that. I think they actually like it. I mean, Trump had the longest shutdown in American history when he was president, and he was the guy who kept it shut down. The Republicans were in charge.
Right. Well, like I said,
it was like 39 days or something.
Also, like the agencies that have the job reports and the economy reports and housing, they're not going to be saying reports of how bad that Trump's doing right now.
No.
And it's another chance for him to push his police state on people.
I agree. And the other potential downside is that the economy is sliding. We know from ADP, from the payroll company, that the last 2 months, August and September, both saw jobs go down, actually a job loss. A couple thousand in August, and 35,000, something like that in September. And so, when those numbers start becoming real, when the media starts talking about we're sliding into a recession, when it becomes official, what the Republicans are going to do is say, see, this is because the Democrats shut down the government. They're going to blame it on the shutdown. When it had nothing to do with the shutdown, it had to do with Trump's tariffs and his general insanity. But I get it, Jim. I get it. But I think if the Democrats cave in now, they're screwed.
I think if they don't, they're going to be, because eventually they're going to end up holding the bag for this whole shutdown, and Trump's going to get what he wants.
We'll see. It's high stakes chicken. It's like driving at each other on the freeway. Jim, thanks for the call. We'll be back on the other side of the break. Stay with us.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free and you can sign up at ThomHartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the HartmannReport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at ThomHartmann.com. So check them all out at ThomHartmann.com and HartmannReport.com.
We say fight back!
Our book today in the Thom Hartmann Book Club is The Brainwashing of My Dad, How the Rise of the Right-Wing Media Changed a Father and Divided Our Nation and How We Can Fight Back by Jen Senko. This is from Chapter 6, How Talk Radio Hijacked My Dad. In 1984, Reagan was reelected in a landslide victory against liberal Democrat Walter Mondale. That year was also when everything began to change for my dad and our family. In 1984, Dad retired from his job with the federal government at age 62. Both my parents missed being near the shore, so they moved back to New Jersey and settled in Toms River, a town where there was a large retired population. Still energetic, my father got a part-time engineering job 3 or 4 days a week, necessitating a long solo commute by car. He didn't want to waste time on music while driving. He wanted to be stimulated mentally, and he discovered talk radio to keep himself company. At the time, Bob Grant was the dominant talk radio personality. Often called the conservative radio, Grant was an openly racist, sexist, far-right shock jock. On his WABC radio show, he referred to blacks and Hispanics as savages. He believed them to be inferior, and he once even called Martin Luther King Jr. a slimeball. With his combative and testy style, he was considered a pioneer of the talk radio format. Soon, Grant became my dad's commuting buddy. I didn't know Bob Grant from Joe Namath, but I did know I didn't care for his style of yelling at callers or hanging up on them if they disagreed with him. My mother was not a fan of Grant's either, and she delighted in telling me the story of how she ran into him one day. She was at the Ocean County Mall eatery, sitting at a table having lunch when she saw Grant walk in. She recognized him, and when he passed her table, she asked, "You're Bob Grant, aren't you?" He said, "Yes, I am." She said, "Oh, my husband likes you, but I don't." He had been walking away and turned to look back at my mother and gave a little laugh. She said she just sat there at the table and did not smile back. Gradually, it seemed my dad started becoming more agitated after listening to Bob Grant. Eventually, he became consistently more irritable, excitable, and easy to anger. Little did we know, a metamorphosis was beginning. Along with massive deregulation in the communications industry, there were several other factors that led to talk radio's explosion of popularity in the 1980s. The first was that music had moved from the AM dial to the high-fidelity sound of FM, and thus left a void on the AM dial. Broadcasters realized that filling that blank airspace with mainstream news wouldn't make much money. However, entertainment made money, and talk radio was entertainment at its finest, even when it masqueraded as news coverage. Human conversation didn't benefit from high-fidelity sound the way music did, so talk radio filled the void on the AM radio waves perfectly. The second contributor to talk radio's rise was the new accessibility of satellite technology, allowing anyone to broadcast a show nationally. And the third was the fact that when 1-800 numbers became available, you could have callers call in from all over the country. These factors combined to make a pretty powerful storm. The format of talk radio was, of course, not new. The format first debuted in the 1920s, continuing with Father Charles Coughlin's controversial and anti-Semitic radio broadcasts in the 1930s. Coughlin has often been referred to as the father of hate radio, and he paved the way for all that has come in his medium. Many of the most famous conservative talk radio personalities modeled themselves after the 1950s sensation Joe Pine. His show, It's Your Nickel, consisted of Pine debating his opinions with people calling in. Calls often culminated with him insulting the caller, to the delight of his audience. The format of talk radio evolved from there, but many of the most popular shows and hosts, including Bob Grant, Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity, and Glenn Beck, have stuck with the confrontational tone and high-emotion interactions that these early hosts introduced. There haven't been many successful liberal talk radio hosts. Ed Schultz, Randy Rhoads, and Alan Colmes tried to make inroads, but simply failed to draw a large audience, in quotes. You may wonder why conservative talk radio programs have been so phenomenally popular while equivalent liberal shows have foundered. Aside from big money to support it, the secret seems to lie in the inflammatory approach favored by these so-called conservative hosts. Abram Brown of Forbes says of liberal talk radio shows, it's not the same thing as a Limbaugh or a Hannity. It's more general, not really railing against the system. No one's yelling, we need to get rid of the Republicans. They're the worst thing that happened in this country. But you'll hear conservative radio hosts say that about liberals on their programs. Brown makes another good point that speaks to that. Tell your audience that the mainstream media is corrupt and biased, that there's more than that there's all the more reason to turn to your conservative talk radio to get the truth. Anger is a hot commodity. Finding an enemy is even hotter. Or as Ailes might say, it's the emotions, stupid. He did not actually say that. A little-known but very chilling example of how powerfully influential radio can be is the 1994 Rwandan genocide, where an estimated 800,000 citizens were brutally murdered by their fellow citizens, the Hutus. This happened after an intense radio campaign that started in 1993 dehumanized and demonized one group, the Tutsis. Militia groups were formed, and police and soldiers joined them in the killing. Samantha Power, who later served as the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, said killers often carried a machete in one hand and a transistor radio in the other hand. Dad discovers Rush Limbaugh. About a year or so after working part-time in his long commute, my dad officially retired. The book, The Brainwashing of My Dad, by Jen Senko.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome to the third hour of the program. On the line with us is Ellie Krug, the attorney, founder and president of Human Inspiration Works, LLC, the author of Getting to Ellen, a memoir about love, honesty, and gender change. EllieKrug.com, ELLIEKRUG.com is the website, and Ellie Krug is the Twitter handle. Ellie, welcome back to the, and you also have you still have a show on KPFK in Minneapolis, right?
I sure do. The show is titled The Illegal Trans Woman. I've been running that show since the week after Donald Trump got reelected.
There you go. God bless you. That's great. So are we headed to a Trump transgender registry?
You know, Tom, I think we're headed to a whole lot of things with the Trump administration. It is incredibly troubling and very difficult right now to be a transgender person in America. I'm sure you caught it, but 2 of the 3 or 4 reasons that Trump blamed the Republican or the Democrats for the shutdown were based on transgender people. He said transgender for everyone and men in women's sports. Those were 2 reasons that he said was the reason for why the Democrats supposedly wanted to shut down the government.
All right. Yeah, they're attempting, Republicans are attempting, it seems, to force Democrats to abandon trans people.
Oh, there's no question about it. And the question really is, to what extent will the Democrats fold? And to what extent will they give up on trans people because they're afraid that it's a campaign issue that is not winning for them. I mean, we haven't even really had the start of the 26 campaign season, but I have no doubt the Republicans are going to pull out the same old playbook they used for the 24 campaign season. And it's incredibly troubling. And then you throw on top of that the Heritage Foundation's oversight project, which is working and angling to get the Department of Justice to create a brand new category of terrorism, something that they've labeled as TIVE, T-I-V-E, Transgender Ideology Induced Violent Extremism. That's what they want. They want the DOJ to create that category of supposed terrorism, and it goes so far. The oversight project is as to assert that if you say that transgender people have the right to exist, that would be labeled, that would be considered a form, an act of terrorism to say that. Yeah. It's unbelievable, Tom.
It is pretty breathtaking. Ronnie Jackson, Trump's former physician in the White House and now the congressman from Texas, is calling for the institutionalization of transgender people. I mean,
yes.
Do you see where does this go? I mean, in Germany, first they came for the trans people, which is something most people don't realize.
Yep, they did. And Nancy Mace as well jumped on that bandwagon about institutionalizing trans people. So, and of course, Ronnie Jackson has the president's ear. I mean, he used to be the president's former White House physician. Where does it go? I don't know, Tom. I mean, it does not appear that the Democrats, at least, are going to speak up for trans people. Certainly, I know that there are a lot of, people, just general humans who care about the transgender community. I mean, just last week, I got 3 postcards in the mail from people who I think were strangers who were telling me that they cared about me and that they wanted me to continue with my advocacy work.
That's
so there are
sweet.
people out there that care about our community. It's just that people, the general population is fatigued, Tom, and people are, they're coming back to their homes and trying to just protect the basic things that they have. And transgender people are unfortunately not on that list of those basic things.
Yeah, I totally get it. So here's the question. I mean, I don't think I'm exceptional. In this regard, I have a nephew who's trans. One of my a close friend that Louise and I got to know when we lived in the marina in Washington D.C. Is a trans woman who was in the Coast Guard. And I haven't talked to her in the last year or so. I've been following her on Facebook, but she's kind of vanished recently. I'm not sure what's going on. I need to reach out. But, I think most people probably are within one or two steps of a trans person in their life. And, what can we do? What can the average, straight person do to help out the trans community?
So, the average, cisgender person, non-transgender person, what they can do is several things. One is if they have a trans person in their life, send that person a note and tell them that they matter, that you care about them, that they have value. But as importantly, start trying to hold our Democratic representatives, hold their feet to the fire about protecting trans people. And if they're not going to do that, if they're wavering, there are younger candidates, who are going to primary older Democratic representatives, Democratic candidates. Those younger candidates, many of them, have many transgender friends. They're well aware about being open to trans and non-binary folks. And so support those people and help get them into office so that they can at least help protect my community. What I fear, Tom, is that time is running out. I mean, Tom, could you have imagined America as it is right now back on January 20th? I mean, I couldn't have imagined it would be this bad this quickly.
Yeah, I didn't either. By the way, I should add that you've got a great Substack newsletter, elliekrug.substack.com. And, there's, I just think we all need to be doing everything we can here. What legislatively, where should we be leaning on our legislators? I mean, particularly if we have Democrats who represent us. What do we say when we call Congress at 202-224-3121?
Well, the appropriation bills are replete with Republican efforts to defund any kind of healthcare provider that's providing gender-affirming care for not only trans kids and youth, but also for adults. So, you need to make sure that our Democratic representatives, and I know that some of them understand this, but that if they, go along with an appropriation bill, they go along with, what they're trying to pass right now. I mean, there'll be a lot of trans people in blue states, not just red states, in blue states, who will lose their access to gender affirming care. And it is, it's, if I lost my gender affirming care, it would be like me going through menopause, like permanently. And I just, it's beyond the pale for me that anybody would want to tinker and take away something so basic as somebody's access to care that helps them both physically and emotionally. And psychologically. I understand that the Trump administration is trying to change the rules with regard to passports, no more X. And some states are trying to adopt these with regard to driver's licenses. What is the status of all that sort of thing? Well, right now that's on hold. I mean, we've got a federal court that has put an injunction in place to prevent the Trump administration from doing anything relative to passports for trans and non-binary folks. Although that, of course, that's on appeal. That they're not issuing passports that are consistent with. I mean, the subject of the litigation is that the federal government the Department of State wants to stop allowing transgender people to get a gender marker that aligns with their gender identity. And for folks who identify as non-binary, to prevent them from getting an X on their passports. What my concern is that they're going to go retroactively back, and that they're going to, for people like me, like Ellie Krug, who has a passport that has an F on it, and my passport's doesn't have to be, isn't going to be renewed until 2034 or something like that, that they'll go back retroactively and take my passport away from me. So, I mean, for that reason, I mean, I am, as a rule, I'm not traveling outside of the country because I don't know. I fear, Tom, about being able to get back in.
Yeah. Geez, I get it. Ellie Krug, check out elliekrug.substack.com and elliekrug.com as well. And Ellie Krug over on Twitter. Ellie, also listen to Ellie's program, the Illegal Trans Woman, on AM 950 in Minneapolis, St. Paul. They've got a live, they've got a stream of it. Ellie, thanks so much for dropping by.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks for having me. I really, really appreciate it.
It is always
keep up the good work.
I will, and it's always good and inspiring talking with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
It's 16 and a half minutes past the hour. I'll be back with more of the news of the day and your calls in just a moment. Stay with us.
Bye, everyone.
And welcome back. Let's pick up some calls here. Paul in Ambler, Pennsylvania. Hey, Paul, what's on your mind today?
Mother of God, Tom, I hope you're going to issue an apology to Elizabeth Warren.
Yeah.
I mean, I almost lost my breath.
I'm sorry. Every now and then you get a brain fart. And so,
yeah.
What can I say?
Well, you're forgiven. All is forgiven. Anyway, I wanted to talk about AOC. She's got a thing up on the internet or whatever it is, TikTok. Basically, the message was, and people can go see all the details, that the Republicans aren't as strong as they might seem. Mm-hmm. And now this isn't to minimize them. They're obviously pulling off a huge scam, but as they like to say, it's a Ponzi scheme, Tom. There's not a lot of there. But if
specifically, what are you talking about, Paul?
AOC wanted to talk about how the strength of the Republicans is basically to try something out and then see who pushes back. And if there's enough pushback, they fail.
They're doing to us what Russia's doing to the Baltic states. Testing, poking.
It's called probing. I mean, this is a military strategy.
Yep.
So what I wanted to say was, in the United States, and this is from more of a social science point of view, you have what's called a parasocial relationship. This country is stitched together by mass media. And this was true 100 years ago with newspapers and then radio and then television and now social media. Everyone's walking around in their personal possession, social media. And as you know, the younger people have it, up into their sinuses all the time. They don't even know what's going on around them. But that's not a social relationship. Hitler, when he went out and had a rally and these throngs showed up, they had a personal relationship. They had an experience of Hitler. Watching somebody on TV or watching them on a little tiny screen on TikTok is not the same as seeing someone in person. Even if you're, a football field back, at least you're surrounded by people that are swept up in a social experience. We've seen it with Billy Graham when he would have revivals. He would come to Shea Stadium. We've seen this in rock concerts. You see it in televangelists when they come out live. And you see it with Trump when he goes on tour. More recently, AOC and Bernie have been going on tour, and they're filling up stadiums.
Yeah, 30,000, 40,000 people at a whack, yeah.
Yeah, it's like a Led Zeppelin concert or a Bruce Springsteen. I mean, they're huge.
Yep.
The difference is parasocial relationships aren't as strong, which is why he has some people falling off I forget which state it is. It might be Oklahoma, one of the Midwest soybean and corn states. 13% of the farmers have already declared bankruptcy. These people are being betrayed.
Yep.
It's different when it's your mom and your dad or your neighbor, and these are people you know face to face, and they come out and they help you out. You know, they help pay your bills or something. Trump's not doing that.
Yeah.
They're realizing the relationship that they thought they have isn't there. And you can't have all these people in this country hold on to beliefs that aren't based on a personal, primary, social relationship.
Yeah. It's an interesting hypothesis or assertion, Paul. I'm skeptical, frankly, but let me ponder that.
You're skeptical of everything, Tom. That's one of your strengths.
Thank you, Paul. Good talking to you. Change starts with you. You can be calling your Democratic or Republican representatives to let them know what you think by calling 202-224-3121. It's the Capitol switchboard. It'll get you right through to them. They called it blood libel, what the Germans were doing against the Jews, claiming that they were using the blood of Christian children to make their matzah. We've got a new blood libel now here in the United States. J.D. Vance and Donald Trump lying through their teeth, arguing that black Haitian immigrants to the United States, legal immigrants with green cards in this little town in Ohio, are eating pets. This is another libel that goes way back. In the 1890s, people were claiming German and Dutch immigrants were eating pets. Then they claimed in the 1880s, and actually as recently as last year, a restaurant got shut down in California because of claims that they were serving pets. They weren't. It was an Asian restaurant. This is just evil stuff, these lies and spreading this kind of hate. And this is now the strategy that the Republicans are using. There's a whole article about it at HartmannReport.com, Hate as a Political Weapon. Check it out.
5 black robes with billionaire strings, cracked the cord and sold a dream. A nation bled for liberty now drowns beneath the money stream. They crown the kings we overthrew. Let fascists march in red, white, blue. The Constitution's torn in two. Injustice whispers, what did you do? The billionaires took the bench. Now the laws are rigged, the lines are etched. But we're not bowing, we're not through. We'll raise this flag till it's red, white, true. We've beaten tyrants once before. We'll break their grip and storm the door. This is the fight for our soul's defense, 'cause the billionaires took the bench.
23 minutes past the hour. Welcome back. Over at nature.com, Nature magazine, it's one of the marvelous websites for science geeks like me. I've subscribed for years. And there's a great piece that just went up yesterday. It's titled "The Damage Done." And I didn't even know this existed. There's it's called the Botswana-Harvard Health Partnership. And it's Harvard University and the country of Botswana, which is down near South Africa. And they're doing some remarkable work on a new drug that they have developed that has gone through all the animal trials and all the safety trials and everything. And they're actually testing it on children in Botswana that can cure AIDS. They can, like you'll recall maybe, 15 years ago or so, they came out with a drug that knocks out Hep C. And that just saved a lot of lives in America, because there's a lot of people that had Hep C for years and years and years, and they took this drug and suddenly they're clear and their liver is no longer, under daily assault. Well, it's that kind of thing. It literally clear the virus out of your body. And they had a couple of dozen kids in this study. And when Trump pulled the money from Harvard, they had to shut down the study. And even just suspending the study for a week or two destroys it. I mean, this is a study that was years to get to this point. Years. And this would have been the first step in the final approval of getting this thing out in the marketplace. And now it's been blown up. Because, you know, I mean, you treat somebody with an antiviral for a while, and if you stop that and then come back, the virus has mutated to the point where it just ignores the antiviral. I mean, it's the same thing with antibiotics. This is insane. This is absolutely insane. Roger Shapiro, professor at the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health in Boston, and his colleagues lost 7 National Institutes of Health grants that supported 11 trials, staff, mentoring, and patients enrolled in those trials. 12 children with HIV are awaiting their next dose of a treatment that's shown promise in a possible functional cure of the disease. Shapiro says you create an entire research program that takes decades to build, and it is struck down in one day by a heroin addict, brainworm lawyer who is pretending to be a doctor and running our public health, and a 34-count convicted felon and adjudicated rapist in the White House. It's just crazy. Speaking of adjudicated rapists, this is amazing. This is a story. It's over at Raw Story. Albanian Prime Minister Bartiromo was caught on video mocking Trump on Thursday with French President Emmanuel Macron. This was, earlier this morning. And Azerbaijan President Ilham Aliyev at the European Political Community Summit in Denmark. And Rama told Macron in the video, he says, "You should make an apology to us because you didn't congratulate us on the peace deal that President Trump made between Albania and Azerbaijan." There, by the way, there is no such peace deal, although Trump claimed it was one of the reasons why he should get the Nobel Peace Prize. "I'm sorry for that," Macron replied, drawing more laughter from bystanders. "He worked very hard," Rama added. Everybody laughed again. Trump is constantly mixing up Armenia and Albania, and he can't pronounce Azerbaijan. And, in his attempts to get the Nobel Peace Prize. Pathetic, just absolutely pathetic. So, all right, what's on your mind? Let's pick up some calls here. We'll do this on the other side of the break and find out what you think. What do you think of my suggestion that the media should start pointing out that John Thune can break the Democratic filibuster today and put the government back in business? He doesn't need Democratic votes. He can just change the rules of the Senate with 50 votes.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
What am I missing here? I don't think I'm missing anything. I think except that the media and nobody else is pointing this out.
Our book for the Thom Hartmann Book Club today is A Nation Forged by Crisis, A New American History by Jay Sexton. And I'm reading from the introduction. This is page 9. The quest for national security and global power, America's shifting position in the international economy, and fluctuations in immigration have made the United States the nation that it is today. Americans' foreign relations have conditioned its history not only in their cumulative effects over the long haul, but also as a result of their volatility. In periods of crisis, America's position in the world has lurched in unexpected directions. For as inexorable as the rise of the United States appears in retrospect, there have been contingent moments in which the very existence of our nation was up for grabs. This is the essence of crisis. The world turned upside down, the known replaced by the unknown, panic reigning as people struggle to maintain their balance and shifts in the very ground beneath their feet. It came with a speed and ferocity that left men dazed, New York Times correspondent Elliot Bell wrote of Wall Street's catastrophic collapse in October of 1929. Quote, "The market seemed like an insensate thing that was wreaking a wild and pitiless revenge upon those who thought to master it," end quote. Crises are contagious, spreading like viruses from one realm to another. It's not without reason that the word crisis was associated with medical conditions and health scares in the 19th century. Each of the periods under consideration in this book were less a singular crisis than a set of interlinked crises. A political crisis could trigger an economic panic, which in turn could intensify social conflict, and so on. As these pandemics spread through the body politic, crisis itself was normalized, becoming an almost accepted characteristic of an age. Just as foreign crises have spread to the United States, domestic ones have spilled across its borders, unsettling foreign countries and peoples, as well as reconfiguring America's connections to the world. Consider the fateful winter of secession that followed the 1860 election of Abraham Lincoln. The crisis over slavery that divided the Union into warring sections that led to a series of sharp reversals in America's position in the global system. The foreign capital that had rushed into the roaring American economy in the preceding decades suddenly began to flee. Indeed, more capital left the United States in 1860 to 1862 than came into it. Also a once-in-a-century occurrence. One of the world's most valuable commodities and America's largest exports, Southern cotton, was confined to the ports of the Confederacy as a result of Richmond's ill-fated diplomatic strategy, leading to unemployment and social unrest in the British textile town of Lancashire. The most unexpected reversal was how the national security that the United States had attained after the war against Mexico in the 1840s was suddenly imperiled, with European powers encroaching once again upon the Western Hemisphere. Meanwhile, the Confederate emissaries across the Atlantic were in search of alliance with Britain. Our country, Secretary of State William Seward lamented in early 1861, after having expelled all European powers from the continent, now threatened to relapse into an aggravated form of its colonial experience, and like India, Turkey, China, and Italy, become the theater of transatlantic intervention and rapacity. A wider view of American history that looks beyond the nation's borders brings into focus not only the migration patterns, economic flows, and international rivalries that have connected the United States to the world, but also those rare moments in which the very existence of the nation was in question. Perhaps none was more pregnant with implications than the autumn of 1877, when the fate of the Patriots' bid for independence hung in the balance. Having proclaimed their independence to the world the previous 4th of July, their cause had stalled on the battlefield and in the diplomatic courts of the old world. I think the game is pretty near up, Washington privately confessed at year's end. To accomplish their independence is not quite so easy as to declare it, the British philosopher Jeremy Bentham haughtily remarked. But then a series of events forever changed the course of modern history. The stunning Patriot victory at the Battle of Saratoga in October, the drafting of the Articles of Confederation in November that, for all its limitations, further demonstrated the political resolve of the Americans. And most of all, the alliance signed with France in February 1778, which provided the Patriots with the resources, military assistance, and naval power that ultimately tipped the scales in their favor. There are comparable Saratoga moments in other crises in U.S. history, as we shall see. These contingent moments played out in their own distinctive ways, but are joined by a common denominator that has been curiously forgotten in our age of U.S. global power. Foreign states and people have played decisive roles in the critical moments of American history. As we make our way through our own era of global instability, in an unprecedentedly interconnected world, there's perhaps no more important lesson from the past to keep in mind. Crisis may beget crisis, Franklin Roosevelt said, as his administration transitioned from battling the Great Depression to entering the Second World War. But the progress underneath does not wholly halt. It does go forward, end quote. Like so many of Roosevelt's public statements, this one reveals a truth even as it conceals others. The United States came out on the other side of its greatest crises as a stronger and more efficiently organized nation, as Roosevelt suggested. The process of mobilizing resources to counter threats catalyzed innovations in political economy, such as the creation of a national financial system during the Civil War, and the economic reforms of the New Deal. The book is A Nation Forged by Crisis by Jay Sexton.
Help support progressive radio. If you're listening to us on a commercial station, call their advertisers and let them know you're listening. If you're listening to us on Pacifica, one of our many nonprofit stations, please support them when they do their fundraising drives. Thanks for supporting Progressive Talk Radio, and tag you're it. I remember my dad's Republican Party, the Republican Party of Dwight Eisenhower. Dwight Eisenhower, who ran on advocacy for democracy around the world, for a clean environment, for honest wages, for unions, for building infrastructure, for government balanced spending, for peace in the world. This is from his 1956 campaign.
Eisenhower knows how to deal with the Russians. He has met Europe's leaders, has got them working with us. Elect the number one man for the number one job of our time. November 4th, vote for peace. Vote for Eisenhower. A paid bill.
Right. Vote for peace. That was, and now the Republicans are the party of, military boondoggles and corruption and hate and anti-union and everything, the opposite of everything Eisenhower stood for. Will the Republican Party survive this? What are they going to come back as? There's a whole op-ed about this titled Goodbye Liz Cheney over at HartmannReport.com. Check it out.
They wrapped themselves in the flag, but they sold their souls for gold. Screaming USA on cue like they were bought and told. They chant for a con man, swear the truth's a lie, while their billionaire masters watch and laugh from up high. They don't fight for freedom, they don't stand for the weak. Just puppets on a string, dancing to the fat cat's beat. Oh, the bootlicker brigade, bending low, tongues out wide, kissing the boots of the men who take them for a ride. Sold out their country for a tax-free scheme, praying to the dollar while they kill the American dream.
Welcome back. 36 minutes past the hour. Picking up your calls here. Brian in Middletown, New Jersey. Hey, Brian, what's on your mind today?
Thanks for that call, Tom. I just wanted to weigh in on what I think happened and why Trump assembled all those generals and admirals. I think it started in 2020 when Milley finally said enough of this, when Trump held up the Bible upside down, and Milley obviously identified his role as not being part of enforcing the law.
I agree. He later apologized for that, in fact, in the press.
Yeah, and I think what happened as a result, right after that, and maybe you caught this and maybe not, because most people didn't, Trump then gave a speech talking about why the rank and file likes him and the officer corps doesn't. Mm-hmm. And he said that I'm keeping them out of war. So he was clearly driving a wedge between the officer corps and the rank and file. Now, what happened this week was he assembled those people to see how they would react to his new pitch with his the Department of War Whiskey Pete giving his ideas how we should approach the Department of Defense. Trump gets on, met with silence, unlike Fort Bragg with the enlisted people. Mm-hmm. He knows now that he's got a problem with the officer corps and the senior officers. Therefore, there's a purge coming. Yep. Many of them will be forced out. Yep. And the last thing I'm going to mention is the economy right now is perfect for Trump because it's allowing him to go into rural areas, to take kids who are coming out of high school, who have no job prospects at all, because nobody's being hired. There are no job hirings.
Throw them into ICE.
Load up. That's right. That's right.
Yep. And ICE is going to become. And here's the big question in my mind, Brian. Let's say that ICE is now on course to be. I mean, they're in a massive hiring binge right now, $50,000 hiring bonuses and all kinds of stuff. But they're on a path to become the largest single police force in America, much like Hitler's protection detail, the SS, became the largest police force in Germany eventually. It took a couple of years, but it did. And the question in my mind is, the SS initially was participating in getting the people out of Germany or rounding them up anyway and putting them in camps, that they argued were not true Germans. That was the Jews, of course, and the gypsies and queer people, that they're not true Germans. And so Trump is going after people who are not true Americans. What happens when they've got all the immigrants out of the country and we still have 50,000 ICE guys running around with guns looking for something to do? It seems to me that they will do the same thing the SS did in Germany by right around 1939, 1940. They'll turn their guns on everybody else. And, what do you think?
They, of course, they're going to take an oath to Trump and not to the Constitution. I mean, the one thing that's missing here is that when you joined, I was in the service, I was in the Marine Corps, and you take an oath to protect and defend the Constitution, not the president. Teddy Roosevelt talked about that. The loyalty is to the country and the Constitution, not the president. Trump wants to change that dynamic, and therefore he's turning this into what he wants in his image and likeness, a police state controlled by him. But at the end of the day, Tom, here's what it comes down to. A third of the country did not vote in the 2024 election. That's how he won, right? And most of those people, I suspect, are suffering from his policies. If they don't get out and vote in the midterms after experiencing the pain of the policies, the beautiful bill and all that, and they don't come out again in 28, I don't know what the future of this country holds, Frank.
Well, this is why they're frantically buying up the media. This is why, Larry Ellison and other right-wing billionaires are on the verge of taking control of CNN and TikTok, and they've already got the Washington Post and the Los Angeles Times and Fox News and CBS, and I mean, it's just, it's a wholesale attack on the truth in America, basically, on reality in America. And, whether they will be able to sustain it, I don't know. I mean, right now, it seems like the two walls, the two barriers that are holding for democracy are late night comedians, and arguably just, all the Democratic Party. I mean, it's like, and our generals, maybe.
Well, that's right. That's
Maybe.
right. They're the last line of defense.
Yeah.
They really are.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it comes down to. I mean, a friend of mine said, it was a Republican, said, are you hoping for a coup d'etat? And I said, I have no comment on that. But I said, as far as I'm concerned, I think we're in a position where we're losing our democracy. And the one thing is, when you talk to Republicans, they'll tell you, well, it's not a democracy, it's a republic. Of course, it's a democratic republic. You need the people to vote their representatives. It's a demos, the people, the Greek word for people. But they completely dismiss the idea of a democracy because they are a minority party and they know how to rule in the majority by disenfranchising voters and controlling the media, Sinclair Broadcasting and other groups of that nature.
Yeah, I get it. I'm with you. Brian, thank you. Well said. Thank you very much. Ike in Charleston, South Carolina. Hey, Ike, what's on your mind today?
Hey, well, if they listen to you, Tom, and read your books, they will be assimilated. There's nothing they can do about that. Here's the deal. Random thoughts real quick before I get to the main point. One, I want 9 more justices put on the Supreme Court.
Yeah, me too.
And I want all their names put on little balls, like a bingo ball. And then when a case comes up, you pick the names out of the hopper, and those are the justices that hear the case.
I agree.
That way, you
that's how it works. That's how it works with the appeals court. Essentially, I mean, they don't have the little balls, but they're randomly assigned. 3 justices out of typically 10 or 11 or 9, whatever it may be on that. On that court.
I want to make sure it's absolutely random.
Yeah.
So they can't fix it. And if they have to buy them all, that's the only way they'll be able to go.
Well, that's what they'll probably try to do. I mean, they've got virtually unlimited money.
Right. The other thing with the Epstein thing, let me call out all the cowards. There's all these people that worked in his houses. There's all these people, FBI agents that collected the evidence. There's all these witnesses of all the people that went in and out of there. And the women themselves, I wouldn't so much put them in the coward category. I'd put them in the scared category. But then you put the other people that were involved with Trump that got screwed over all these years and knows the ins and outs, like his personal secretary. They need to stand up, and they need to, as one of my heroes, Ike Newkirk in Atlanta used to say, stand up and tell truth and you'll shame the devil.
Yeah.
Bring it all on at one time and hit him. Now, my main thought is what this last guy was talking about, and I've talked to you about it before. After that dog and pony show with Commander Hair Gel and the toasted tostada, I got so many names for him.
Mango Mussolini.
After that little clown show, you tell me. I don't agree with the guy. Lastly, I'm telling you, as a military man, you will not break my oath to the Constitution, and you ain't going to do it to them, particularly with these guys. And I say we're one step closer to a coup. And I think they ought to have one of those meetings every other month and really enforce how crazy and how much danger these people are and put a stop to it.
I got David Korten is an old friend of mine. He and his wife, Fran, we spent a week with the Dalai Lama together back in, I think it was 1999, and we've been close ever since. He's written a bunch of books. He wrote When Corporations Rule the World. It's probably his most famous book. He and his wife have a newsletter. They started Yes Magazine too, by the way. But they have a newsletter, and they sent out one this morning, which I read during the break. And what David understands this stuff. He used to work for our government. He used to travel around the world, as an economist and helping other countries and helping third world countries and stuff. He and Fran lived in Southeast Asia for years. And his newsletter, what he says is that Pete Hegseth did us all a big favor, because by getting all those generals together in one room and then doing this absolutely crazy, bat guano crazy stuff in front of them, and we're going to attack the cities, and it's the evil Democrats and all, just stuff that every single general in that room knew was wrong. Before they were all pulled together into one room, many of them felt very isolated, and they had no idea whether their peers thought this was as nuts as they thought it was. Now they all know that they all think it's nuts, or at least the vast majority of them. And that is going to make them more unshakable. It's going to make it more difficult for Donald Trump to order the military to do things that they just don't want to do. And I think David is probably right. David is a brilliant observer of these things. I think he's absolutely right. So we'll see, Ike. I mean, this is the old Zen master saying, from Mike Dirks. We'll see. But
keep on fighting the good fight, Tom. I appreciate it.
There you go, Ike. Yeah, the battle is not yet over. Thanks a lot for the call. We'll be back. Stick around.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
It's Talk Media for the sane among us. I'll be right back with your calls. Stick around. And welcome back. Cody in New York City. Hey, Cody, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom, thank you so much for your opening rant today. Totally right. Trump is a total fraudster and a total liar. But the thing is that people do not understand this, and we are doing a terrible job at communicating it. We're taking baby steps at trying to communicate this. It's like Mark Twain said, a lie gets it all the way around the world before the truth even has a chance to lace up its boots. That's where we are. We're not even barely lacing up our boots right now.
Yep.
So let me give you an analogy. So let's say a bank robber gets a job as the head of security for the bank.
That's where we're at. Yeah, that's where we're at.
That's exactly where we're at. But people don't understand that because they see the head of security as, no, this is the head of security. Right? So when the head of security starts implementing policies, he's saying, I'm doing this because I'm going to make the bank better. I'm going to protect the money. Yeah. No. His policies are so he can steal the money. Exactly. He's a bank robber. And we are not communicating this. There was a great scene that communicated this point in the movie starring Leonardo DiCaprio, Catch Me If You Can. It was a great movie. It was directed by Spielberg. It starred Tom Hanks as well.
I saw it.
So in that movie, Leo was a fraudster, a total fraudster, just like Trump.
Yep.
So there was a part where he was a fraudster in a hospital, and Leo got a job as this crazy high position of being the head of the entire surgery. And he wasn't even a doctor, total fraud. So there was the scene where he gets caught because a patient comes in who is hurt into the emergency room, and there's these real doctors standing around, and the real doctors grab Leo and say, "Hey, Leo, tell us how to treat this patient." Right? So we, as the movie audience, thinks, you know what, Leo's going to get exposed here. And sure enough, Leo just says a whole bunch of nonsense about how to treat this patient because Leo doesn't know how to treat the patient because he's not a doctor. So at the end of the scene, Leo goes away, and we're left with just the real doctors. And we, as the movie audience, are ready for the real doctors to realize, to call the bluff, right? The gig is up, to say, oh, my gosh, Leo's a fraudster. And what do the real doctors do? They say, oh, Leo, he's such a great doctor. We're so lucky to have him as the head of surgery. Even the real doctors couldn't identify that Leo is a fraudster.
Yeah.
And this is because it's such a foreign concept to think that the president of the United States is not actually trying to help the country.
Right.
He's not actually trying to help the middle class. He's not trying to solve the problems.
You are You are singing my song here, Cody. This is, every day Louise and I have kind of a little meeting together, and we talk about, what's my next op-ed going to be about. And the one that I'm planning to write this afternoon to publish tomorrow morning and talk about on tomorrow's show is, if you were given the assignment, let's say by Vladimir Putin or by some, crazy right-wing, South African billionaire, if you were given the assignment of destroying the United States of America, what would you do? And then you just go through the list. Well, you deconstruct the bureaucracy. You would destroy America's reputation around the world. You would destroy faith in the dollar by going after the Fed. You would cut, health care. I can't think of anything Trump is doing that doesn't fall into that category.
I agree. But in the media, what we should be saying is Trump is a fraudster.
Yeah.
He's a fraudster. And then with each example that happens every day, this is the next example.
Yeah, he's been a fraud his entire life. You're absolutely right,
day.
Cody. You're absolutely right. Cody, thank you. Thank you for the call. It's 10 minutes before the hour. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. Welcome back, 9 minutes before the hour, picking up your calls here. Maria in Chicago. Hey, Maria, what's up?
Hi, Tom. Long time no speak, but I've been listening to you for ages. The reason I called was when you had your guest on speaking about the trans community, it just riled me up because what people fail to understand is that we are all part of the human race.
Yeah.
We are all human.
Yeah.
What does it matter what we which way we lean? We're human beings, and it really infuriates me that people are targeting these people as well as other people. I know what it's like to be targeted. I'm a Puerto Rican, born and raised in Chicago, and I had to deal with racism my entire life. I thought when President Obama became the president, we were at a turning point, but no, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
We were slapped silly in November of 2024, which caused me to just like, what the hell?
Yeah.
But I don't give up. I still go to the protests. I still do what I can as an individual because nobody is going to rip my inalienable rights away from me that's been guaranteed under the Constitution, and I am not going to allow other people to take away from other people as well because they're so focused on their hate and loathing that they fail to recognize that we are all human beings.
Yeah. Good on you, Maria. That was so well said. Thank you so much. Liz in Redmond, Washington. Hey, Liz, what's on your mind?
Hey, Tom. I'm going to make this brief. I'm a bus driver for a high-tech company in Seattle, and I drive 8 hours a day back and forth, Seattle, Redmond. And I've repeatedly been seeing brand new pickup trucks, brand new Jeeps, brand new SUVs with illegal blacked out windows. They have
blacked out on the driver's side window kind of stuff?
Yeah. Yep. And I've seen a couple of them that were hauling, small cargo trailers that looked like they were rented.
Yep.
And it was the same rental company.
I think they're preparing for a military takeover of the United States.
I agree, and I see them all day long, and I'm seeing more and more of them, and it's really spooky.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that report, Liz. I appreciate it. Keep us up to date, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks a lot. Angela in New York City. Hey, Angela, what's on your mind?
Hey, Tom. I'm glad your caller from before stated what she stated about fighting, but it really hit me today that we're living essentially under a dictatorship, and that's because, and it really hit me hard. I stopped watching news because I don't think they're reporting anything at all. So I decided to on and off watch news from Italy. I'm Italian, so I watch RAI television. Italy, I don't know if you know it, is in the midst of, they're shutting the country down due to what's happening with the flotilla. And that, I think 40 Italian citizens were arrested by Israel. It's a general strike. They're shutting the country down.
Interesting. They being the labor unions?
Yeah, everybody, the students, the labor unions.
Yeah.
It's what we call sciopero generale.
And is this a response to I believe her name is Giorgia Meloni, who is the Prime Minister of Italy, who's has strong ties to the old fascist parties?
Yeah, it's not just a response to her. It's a response to the arrests of the people on the flotilla. The flotilla that was.
Is that because they want the government to do something about it, to take on Israel militarily?
Well, no, they want the government to stop recognizing Israel, and they want something to be done about what's happening in Gaza. They want the government to recognize genocide. The whole point of it was I was watching all of these students, and this is happening in every major city in Italy, even in my home city. And in watching this, I was so proud, and I was so filled with joy. And then it hit me. We're not doing this here.
Right.
We can't do this here.
Right.
And it hit me like a ton of bricks. And I didn't want to watch it anymore.
Yeah.
And
I had that experience when Louise and I were in
yeah.
Norway a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
And, just talking to Norwegians about, the life that they have, the freedoms that they have. And it's just like, oh my God, how far we've gone. Every now and then you just get these like sudden hits of, how far we have gone down this road toward fascism.
And I'm not questioning. I'm starting to feel, this isn't conspiracy. I don't care. I feel like the Democrats are useless. I don't think anything's being done. And what's scaring me even more is that people are complacent. They're not doing anything. Yeah. We're not sleepwalking. We're already there.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen?
I get it, Angela. Angela, I'm sorry I'm out of time, but October 18, show up and keep contacting your representatives, and we just have to speak out in every venue possible. Angela, thank you for the call. And thank you for being with us today. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. Anything Goes Friday. In the meantime, don't forget, democracy is not a spectator sport. It requires all of us, and that includes you. So get out there, get active, tag, you're it. Have a great afternoon. Be good to yourself and the folks around you. Stay safe, and I'll catch up with you tomorrow.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit THOMHartmann.com.
In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free, and you can sign up at ThomHartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the HartmannReport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at ThomHartmann.com. So check them all out at ThomHartmann.com and HartmannReport.com.
We say fight back!
Our book today in the Thom Hartmann Book Club is The Brainwashing of My Dad.